Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday, March 20th, 2024 Planning Board meeting for the town of Raymond. The Planning Board will come to order. The board does have a quorum, and I would like to start with roll call of the members.
If you go to March 15, well, you have to, I think it's an old mail now, go to
Bunny and
L.
Ross.
Mike Richmond.
Greg Foster.
Ed Kranich.
Mark Childs.
Kevin Woodbury.
And Steve on Zoom as well.
Nope.
Steve, you still there?
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, Stephen Clark.
Okay, and Robert O'Neill. Steve, just as a reminder for those of us on Zoom, to vote, we have to actually say yes or no. We can't just hold our hand up.
Not a big deal.
Yeah. All right. This is a public hearing, and unless the board specifically votes to go into executive session, you have the right to hear everything that is being said and to look at all the exhibits that are presented. Please notify the chair if you're unable to see or hear. The board works from a published agenda and will be considering tonight's items in the following order. We have the approval of the minutes from the February 21st, 2024 meeting. We have a public hearing on the ordinance changes or proposed ordinance changes for the June 2024 town meeting. In the old business, we have a site plan review and public hearing for the Allen Solar Project, followed by, we have no new business on this evening's agenda, staff communications, and then the updates from ongoing projects, and followed by adjournment. I just want to add at this time a little note that I'm going to probably most likely rearrange the agenda slightly, just so I know there's a lot of community involvement and interest in some of these, and I probably move those a little bit earlier into our evening discussion, so that I'll keep everybody here, or actually get everybody out of here as quickly as possible. I am told the weather is not that great there. In each instance, the burden is upon the applicant to demonstrate compliance with the provisions of the applicable ordinances or state law. All persons speaking, including representatives of the applicant and members of the public, are asked to stand at the microphone, state their name, address, and affiliation with the application. All persons speaking shall address the chairman. Any conversations must be held in abeyance until after the board has formally adjourned. After the board votes on the merits of each application, it will prepare a written notice of decision. Because the notice of decision may substantially affect any appeals rights, and also as a matter of courtesy, the board asks that those attending the meeting with regard to a specific application not leave until the board has completed its discussion. Appeals from adverse decisions must be filed with the Superior Court or as otherwise provided by law within 45 days of this board's decision. Also, to be certain that you preserve your individual rights to file such appeal, you must be certain that the board records evidences of your appearance this evening. Okay. So our first order of business is the the proposed ordinance reviews. I'm going to, for the board,
Mr. Chair.
I'm going to move.
Mr.
Yes.
Chair, we want to do the approval of the minutes
Oh,
first.
about the minutes. Thanks.
Move
All
that we
right,
approve
approval of the minutes. Is there a motion?
Move that we approve the minutes of February 21st.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Kevin
Aye.
and Steve?
Yep.
And I'm abstaining. I was not at the meeting. Okay, now our public hearing. I'm going to, just as a heads up to those there, I'm going to open and close the public hearing at various times this evening. I do intend to make sure that everybody that wants to speak, but I think in the interest of moving our meeting along, I may, depending upon how the discussion goes, ask the board for some deliberation, in which case I'll close the public hearing, ask the board for some deliberation and some further guidance, and then depending upon that outcome, I'll reopen the public hearing if there are still those that want to speak for or against the changes. I would ask, we do have a fairly packed agenda as far as public hearing goes. I would ask that you please keep your comments relatively short, like 2 to 3 minutes. Please, if it doesn't matter, much to the board if we hear the comment once or we hear the same comment 20 times. It will have the same impact as far as getting our attention. So I would just kind of please keep that in mind. Also, comments must be directed, actually, the best comments are directed towards, specifically towards what the ordinance is proposing, or in the case later on with the solar project, based upon comments based upon specifically about the site plan review ordinance. Okay. How we doing? Everybody okay as far as they can hear me? I'm going to have a little difficulty that I am not going to be able to see everybody, so that I kind of ask maybe Ed will help a little bit in keeping the flow going. But our first proposed land use ordinance I'm going to tackle is 24 Tax 7. Those are the maps. And I think that's probably what a lot of people are here to talk about. I'm going to break this up into two comments. One will be the proposed map changes on around Clearwater Drive. And then the second discussion will be about the proposed map changes on Main Street. We have received correspondence, and just for the record, if you bear with me, I want to make sure that it is noted. We've received communications, and the board has received the letters from Kristen and Glenn Waters, from Janet Sir, from Catherine Stetson, Chase Curtis, and Gil Brown. And my apologies if I mispronounced any of those. And we have read those, and they are now in the, those comments are in our record. Okay, so to start with, I'm going to ask Alex to give us a short summary of what 24 Tax 07 is proposing, and then we'll have a discussion. Alex?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to just share the screen here so that we can look at these maps together. A little bit of historical background on this one. This map change was initially requested by the new owner of the White Pines Motel. And they had some interest in possibly changing the use of that building from a motel to a multifamily dwelling, which is not allowed in the commercial district. When looking at that, we actually also discovered that the parcel is partially in shoreland, even though it's, I think, approximately 1,200 feet from Sebago. So, you know, he submitted a request to the planning board to look into that, to see what the possibility would be to amend the zoning ordinance to allow for a couple of things. The first being multifamily dwellings in the commercial district, and the second would be a zone change to actually put the entire lot in commercial. After looking at that, the board had some discussions reviewing the 600-foot setback from the water and the land kind of on the sides of 302 next to the commercial district to possibly look at rezoning those to more of a village zone, which matches the smaller lot sizes and residential uses of those parcels. And that's kind of where we've left off.
Okay. Does the board have any questions at this point of Alex?
I do. Alex, what would be the setback currently? Because is this the property line in the red dash where the yellow meets? So how far back is that from the shore? That's well over 850, isn't it?
Yeah, you could say probably around 1,000, depending on where you measure it from.
Okay. I was just curious. Thank you.
I can't scale on this particular map that I'm on right now, but I have before, and it was over 1,000.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for Alex? All right, then I will open the public hearing. I'd like to, after reading the letters that have come in so far, I would like to start. Is there anybody that is present in the audience or on Zoom that would like to speak in favor of this change?
I have a question. I still don't understand the change, like the information that was sent to the abutters is really not clearly articulated. What is the ask and what's the change?
Okay.
Yeah,
Could I first get through those that we want to speak for this project, and then we'll answer questions when we get to like further on in the process. Is there anyone present that wants to speak either via Zoom or at the meeting for the project?
Change.
Okay, so I still have the project of the screen and small. Someone from the board, help me out. Is there anybody there that's getting ready to speak for the project? Okay. I'm hearing nobody. Is that, Ed, can you confirm that for me?
I couldn't hear you.
I can't hear you too clearly, Bob.
I'm wondering, is there anybody in the audience or on Zoom that wants to speak for, in
Okay.
favor of this project?
Yes, there is no one that wants to speak in favor. No one identified themselves as that.
Okay. And I am correct in assuming that the board has read all of the letters that have come through and correspondence?
Correct.
Yes. Is there anyone? Okay. Okay, I am going to, before we then open to the rest of the comments, I'm going to suspend the public hearing for a moment for the board to deliberate on this project. So our public hearing is suspended for a moment on 24-07. I've got some questions for the board. It is very obvious that the community is opposed. I know that there is some misinformation, but that is neither here nor there. But the community is very opposed to this change, and they are the ones that are directly impacted by this change. I am curious at this point whether the board wants to continue or possibly hold this change. A little bit additional information is this change is kind of corresponding to, and maybe Greg can talk a little bit about this, corresponding to and with the proposed changes to the comprehensive plan. That has not yet been approved and gone through the process yet. And even if it's true, it is in the 2004 comprehensive plan. That's now 20 years old. So I'm just curious at this point whether or not we need to continue with this. And if you could, while you're thinking about that, I am negligent in starting off the conversation on the ordinances with, we have three options. As a planning board, we can vote to approve and to recommend approval to sending this to the selectmen. We can vote just to send it to the selectmen without approval, or we can vote to table or not approve the application until further study. Application, ordinance. All right, so discussion. Anybody? Thoughts?
Well, you mentioned my name, so I will speak in regard to the comprehensive plan. Last night we had a hearing, or actually a workshop. There were a lot of comments made. I believe those comments have been organized, and they are, I don't know if they're available yet or not. I have not looked at them. I did not have time. But the concerns will be weighed by the comprehensive plan committee, and I can guarantee you we will take them very seriously.
Thanks, Greg. So what I am basically kind of looking for at this point is to whether or not we want to hold this change 24.07 or just the portion of it right now that deals with Clearwater Drive, maybe till after the comprehensive plan is approved, or do we want to continue and kind of lead the comprehensive plan with this review?
I have a question. With this change, this also affects other areas, obviously, besides Clearwater Drive and the proposed hotel or motel area. What other areas are there affected in this change? As far as
Steve, we're going to do it in two. The other part of the change is Main Street, and I think we will do Main Street separately from Clearwater, since they're two kind of different, doing the same thing but two different issues.
Gotcha.
Mike, anyone else? So if I could, I don't want to lead the board, but my view at this point is that if you asked me, I would move to table this warrant change until at least the comprehensive plan gets through. I think that the abutters and the homeowners in the area have raised some significant questions that deserve to be answered concerning the environment, the environmental impact. I know there's a lot of things that have been raised that concerning the drive, as the town's not taking over the roads, we're not forcing the expansion of the roads. All of those be handled by different permits. But I don't think at this point there's enough reason to continue with this particular ordinance change. And I'm looking for concurrence or not from the board.
I agree with that, Bob.
Yeah, I second that as well.
Yeah, I agree, Bob. That's my thought was the same.
Yeah, I do as well. I think it's something that we couldn't go back on if it sort of didn't fit well with the comprehensive plan. So I would rather wait until we can figure that out.
Yeah, that is mine. So just since I started this all off, the motion that I would need would be a motion to table the application, table the ordinance, the proposed ordinance change on Clearwater Drive until we could do it until the comprehensive plan goes through, or we could simply vote to not send the warrant change to the selectmen. And that's probably the cleanest and easiest, and then we address it if it comes back. Either way you guys want to go.
I'd like to move that we send it to the Board of Selectmen as we don't want to take action on it at this time.
Yeah, so we wouldn't send it. In that case, we will
Okay.
keep it.
We'll just
We'll not
notify
send
them
it to
that
the Board
we
of Selectmen.
will not send it.
Right. We will just vote it down at this point. Is there, just a friendly amendment to Ed's motion would be that we would, it's kind of a negative, allowed by Robert's rules, but it's a negative motion that we will not forward the Clearwater Drive ordinance, land use ordinance change to the selectmen for consideration. Would there be a second?
Second?
I second that.
Before the board votes, I would just, and I know this is a little out of order here, I would like to open the public hearing back up again on this topic, and just to make that the community around Clearwater is in concurrence with the board's actions at this point. Is there anybody? So I will open the public hearing on 24.07. Anybody that would want to speak at this point on the Clearwater portion of the changes, you are welcome to do so and invited to the podium.
Yeah, Peter Levitt, 2 Levitt Road. I believe there's 3 categories. There's opposed, those are in favor, and there's those that are neither opposed nor in favor. So with the chairman's permission, I'll go forward as not for or against. But since it was,
please do, Peter.
Yeah, so since it was brought up about the comprehensive plan, what you need to know is this. It's your plan, not ours. It's gratifying to see the number of people that have come out tonight. I think that there are some legitimate concerns with this. I think there's also some not in my backyard concerns. And I think generally what the growth ordinance by the Maine state guidance to comprehensive plans is to direct growth towards your growth areas. And in Raymond, that includes commercial, that includes the village, and likewise. So that's the guidance we get from the state. And so I'd just like to make that clear to everyone here. Also, one thing that was mentioned about last night's meeting, which was a comprehensive plan workshop, and that's that we got a lot of good feedback. And I really encourage people in the community to keep keeping us informed on how you feel. But I would suggest that when you look at those numbers are skewed, because a third of the individuals, at least, that were at that meeting last night are here tonight. And what we're going to be doing is asking everybody in Raymond that is interested to weigh in when the comprehensive plan is finished. We finish it January of next year, and we'll go to you in June of next year for approval. If you have concerns, I would encourage you to come to the comprehensive plan meetings, stay organized, and that's generally how you get things done. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Is there anybody else that would like to speak?
Good evening. My name is Andrew Broadus. I'm the attorney for the Friends of Clearwater. It's an informal group of homeowners. We've had discussions with other folks in Raymond. I'd like to think that there are other friends in Raymond that will join us. Peter stole some of my thunder. I was talking to him last night. I've been a land use attorney for 43 years. Love the town of Raymond. I'm a fellow neighbor. I'm a Fry Islander, but I'm also a Westbrookite. So I come through Raymond a lot. What I hear is, first of all, and I'm glad that the town has already reached out for surveying of the population. North Star, I think, is doing a good job in that accord to get what the voice of the people are. I think it's important that all you boards hear that. One of the things that I'm concerned about is that the selectmen, the planning board, and the comprehensive plan committee perhaps have a joint meeting, all of you together, and I think it would help on the timelines here, because what I was going to say was, you're putting the cart before the horse. Working on the comprehensive plan is needed, updating. I've read the 2004 document. It has a lot of good, timeless advice to the town, and if you read it, you will see that what it screams at me is Raymond is rural and wants to remain so. This meeting kind of proves my point. Density doesn't work well for people. It works well in cities when they coordinate, but a town like Raymond isn't set up to get the big boxes here, the multi-families, and that would be coming here at the request of a
Sir,
developer.
could you please keep the comments to the particular map ordinance changes that we are discussing this evening?
Sure. The ordinance change on the 7 here that you just mentioned.
24.7, that we have a motion, the motion is not to forward this, so it basically is killing the ordinance. If you would like to speak for that we should not do that, please feel free to do that. Otherwise, I think your comments really are kind of no longer germane.
Well, I was just indicating that we'll go through the rest of these ordinances to see where the board is coming down, because there were a number of them, 1 through 9, and we'll go through the rest of them.
Yep.
So I appreciate.
We'll be going through each one.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing on 24.07, the clear water drive portion of that proposed ordinance change. And I'm going to ask the board for a vote on the motion that has been made. All those in, first actually, any more discussion on that motion? Okay, all those in favor then, the motion now, just a reminder, is that the ordinance 24.07, a land use ordinance on the Clearwater Drive, will not be forwarded to the selectmen and will not appear on the town, will not appear as an option on the town meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
7-0.
Kevin, aye. Steve is aye. Robert is aye via Zoom. And from present on the board,
7-0.
I can't see that. Ed, Greg, Mike?
It's unanimous.
Unanimous.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I wasn't on my board. Okay, so the motion has passed. The second part of that is the district rezoning, the map that is on Main Street. I will open the public, actually, Alex, could you just give us a quick version on that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So similarly, this one was also prompted by a citizen request. And this is a lot that is located between the boat launch on 302 for Sebago Lake and Main Street. And it goes from 302 to Main Street. The entire parcel is zoned LRR2, which is one of our shoreline zones. And the request was to look into that to see if it would be possible to convert a portion of the lot back into village if it didn't meet the requirements to be in shoreland. So we did take a look at that, and what was found after looking at, working with the Sebago Technics for our GIS, there is a portion that is beyond 600 feet and beyond 250 feet from a wetland greater than 10 acres. So there is a possible area on 3 lots on Main Street that could be put back into the village. I believe 2 out of the 3 are currently developed. One of them is vacant. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Any questions from the board or for Alex?
Could you point out which lot is not developed yet? That one?
Yeah, sure. So the lot that is
Biggest one? Yeah.
right here
Okay.
is vacant. I believe these 2 both have structures on them.
So how does it change the use of this vacant lot? Will it?
Well, so I mean, obviously the shoreland zone is more strict than the village. But there are, when it comes to more strict, it's more for vegetation removal and surface coverage. You can do some stuff outside of shoreland that you can't do within shoreland. For example, if someone wanted to put like a duplex on this lot up here, you can do it in the village. You can't do a duplex currently in the shoreline zone. But that's just one example. So there could be some others that that you could pull out of that. But
Setbacks are same?
setbacks are less strict in the village than they are in LRR2.
So I guess I have a question. If everything else around it is village, except for that small area right now, what would be the concern for switching it?
Density?
Yeah, I mean, there's a possibility that a vacant lot would be developed. There's a lot going on this lot there's some easements there and some utilities going through. So it is kind of a challenging lot. But yeah, you'll have possibly another driveway could be going in there.
So it would be fairly minimal then if we were just
Yeah.
talking a
Yeah.
single dwelling.
Yeah, I mean, you still have the density requirements.
Yep.
And, so it's not a huge lot. So,
The other limitations may be septic on that one.
yep. You'll have also, I mean, everything's got to be met as far as your wastewater. And that dictates, really the general use as far as density goes for a dwelling unit.
Alex, do you think there's enough room in there right now to have a buildable lot and have a septic system if it was adequate to the size?
On the vacant one.
That I can't answer. I wish I could, but based on the information I have, I don't know for sure, to be honest on that.
Yeah, fit a septic and a well on that would be kind of tough.
Well, I think you could put the septic on there and you could put the well. You could put the well in the shoreline zone.
Yep.
Okay.
So that gets you your separation. It'd just be, what are the soils, I think, is the issue there. But it's consistent with what's on Main Street as far as what we're proposing, or what the town's proposing.
Would it impact the other two lots in any way
The other two,
that already have a building on them?
I mean, you're switching to a less strict zone, so if there's any impact, I don't know that it would necessarily be negative. They're both developed. Both of those two lots to the right aren't really overly vegetated currently. And there are some surfaces there, so, you know, really the concern would be increased surfaces and runoff down to that wetland in the back, but that we still leave the 250-foot area that is a buffer that needs to be protected.
yeah, and those other two lots, at least the one in the middle, is a very slim amount. It comes back into village. It's the end lots that benefit the most.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know if there's enough area in there, even with the village standards, that they could do much more than a duplex
Or a single family.
or a single family.
But it sounds like by a strict definition or a strict interpretation of the standards, it sounds like it meets the standards.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else from the board?
Nope.
Okay, then I'll open the public hearing for 24.07, but this is only for the proposed ordinance change affecting the land on Main Street. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak either for or against this change?
My name is Linda Pankowitz. I'm at 9 Pulpit Rock Road, and I don't think the board should do anything until they actually know something. I mean, I just heard somebody say they didn't know about the well or the sewer septic system. I don't live on Main Street, and one more house on Main Street isn't going to make a big deal. But you can't make decisions if you don't know what's going on. And please don't make a decision until you know something is feasible. If that land isn't appropriate for a house and you're going to put a house on it, that's going to be a problem. You know, that's all I'm saying is if you don't know, wait until you do know. That's all.
Well, ma'am, before you go, the change that is proposed has nothing to do with actual what will actually be allowable to be constructed. That still has to go through the permit process. This is just changing what the zone is called, and really it actually is correcting an oversight that should have been caught really when the first lines were drawn. So it does not change the permitting process to get what anyone on that builder that would want to build would. They would have to figure out where to put the septic. They'd have to figure out where to put the well. And if none of that was determined to be feasible, then they wouldn't get their permit to build, regardless of what district the land is in.
No, I understand. You have to understand, though, that coming from Pulpit Rock Road, I am a little skeptical. You know?
Okay.
You made a decision on a solar farm without knowing all the facts. So I just thought I would point out, don't make another decision without knowing all the facts. Because Raymond might have to change its slogan. Instead of home of the landlocked salmon, which we don't have anymore.
Okay, thank you.
We could make it.
That's enough.
No, it's not enough. Don't you tell me to be quiet. How dare you tell me to be quiet? Let me finish my.
Ma'am, we need to move the
You're
meeting.
talking about something that's not related to the issue.
You've already
at hand.
answered your question, ma'am. Thank you. There's a,
Levitt Road.
any other discussion from the public?
Yeah, I'd like to speak in favor of this simply from the fact that looking forward, I would be in favor of expanding village area, especially if in fact it's the area that you're talking about is consistent with all the area around it, and it really meets all the setbacks from the water. So I think looking forward, that would be my recommendation.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dustin Martin. I'm from 70 Main Street. I'm the abutter to one of these lots. There's the complications to this lot is unless something else is reached, the driveway will need to go through right between the gas pipeline and directly on the property line with no setbacks. It would actually have to be within, I think, an additional 4 or 5 feet over the pipeline's allowed area to build for their clearance area. It's something that was always supposed, for what I was understood, I've been here for 25 years, it always was a protected lot. Things have changed, I understand that, but that's a lot where all the trails for the snowmobiles and side-by-sides and four-wheelers come through. That's how they get to the lakefront, that's how they get to your gas stations. Those will be now, I'm assuming, heading straight up Main Street. So we'll have to deal with that additional noise and traffic up the road itself. There's also a large amount of wildlife in there, which obviously whenever you build, you do disturb. But the complications with the lot and the large amount of runoff that's constantly there does concern me with what is going to happen with all that water in the near future. If it's developed and if it goes from lakefront to village, the lot sizes change, the setbacks change. It can be developed. So from one house, it could possibly be 4 in that smaller area by changing the lot size and the setbacks. I don't know if it'll meet the other things, but as the neighbor, of course, I don't want a large amount of places next to me, nor do I want a driveway right through on top of a pipeline. Is there anything illegal about it? I don't believe there is, but Raymond's a small town, not a developed area. But that's all I have. Thank you.
Sir, could you just, I'm sorry, I got a little missed some of that. You are an abutter?
Yes.
And the area that one of these lots is now serving as a snowmobile trail, is that pretty much what you
Yes,
said?
it's the snowmobile trail and the passway through to get to the lake and where Sunset Variety is and the gas station. There's a trail that runs all the way through there up to that area, and there has been for, well, 20 some odd years since I've been there. So that is the main route.
I'm sorry, so does that leave Main Street and crosses this property?
Yes, that
So
it goes through
crossing-
that property.
So so the trail does right now go through private property, is basically what you're saying?
Yes, it used to be St. Joe's and St. Joe's Land Trust for their agriculture and research department. That was changed. That was sold to another buyer, then sold to another person at this point.
Oh, interesting.
So it will change the path of our tourism and all our snowmobiles and whatnot if it's developed, because no one wants them driving through their neighborhood.
Right.
But we'll have them going up Main Street instead.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this? Okay, back to the board. I close the public hearing on
Yeah, one more, Bob.
the Main Street. Oh, I'm sorry.
One more. Latecomer.
One more. Sorry.
Jeff Morris, 13 Anderson Road. I think if this person who owns this bought this piece of land with intention to use it and it has the same setbacks as all the houses around that have been built, I think they should be allowed. I mean, just I get it. I use the snowmobile trail. I like the snowmobile trail, but if this person doesn't get to utilize their land because the neighbor doesn't want to look at their house and the snowmobile trail goes through, I just don't think that's fair to the person that owns the land if they meet all the regulations and setbacks. And, you know, I know plenty of houses, and most of you probably have houses within 250 feet of the water. These setbacks are pretty serious. Like, I have a property that's in the water just 650 feet from, that's in shoreland zoning. And I think some of these are just a little reaching hard on these setbacks for the shoreland zoning. So I would be for this person having the same setbacks and regulations to all the neighbors on the road. That's it.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, I'll close this portion of the public hearing. And back to the board for discussion.
Could we hear from Peter Levitt again, if there's anything, about that area that's been discussed, or maybe Greg knows?
I mean, as far as discussed in the comprehensive plan?
Yes.
Oh, sure. I'm sure Peter would be willing to talk.
Yeah, Peter's always willing to talk. So as far as the discussion, this specific area, no. I can tell you in general, the discussions on the comprehensive plan, and it was reviewed last night at the workshop, is looking at encouraging further growth in the growth areas and designating what those growth areas in town are. And we're in the process of getting the community's sense of where those growth areas should be. In the 2004 plan, the growth was LR1, it was village, it was commercial, and it was industrial. And likewise, if you think about 121 and the TIF, and I think that was discussed a little bit as far as the pipeline, a lot of the funding we get or we can have in use for tax dollars is really to help develop the growth areas. And what this comprehensive plan, once it's done, will do, will either keep the growth areas as they are, reduce them, increase them, or change them entirely as far as what the community wants to see. But in speaking as far as the village is concerned, that has been designated a growth area in the town of Raymond. I can go back to 1991 with one of the first comprehensive plans in this town, and that was designated as a growth area. That answer your question, Kevin?
Peter.
Yes, thank you very much, Peter.
Sure.
So back to the board. Any further discussions? How we would like to proceed?
Seems like we're correct.
I personally don't see
oversight. That was, it should have been village residential anyway from the beginning.
Yeah, I agree with that. If everything else around it, is that, why would we say that this can't be village as well? Again, soil tests and everything permitted, but also back to the issue about, the snowmobile trail or the ATV trail, that no one can build on top of a pipeline itself. So there would be a setback, and I don't know how much it would be or what the access could continue to be with that ATV trail, snowmobile trail, but I would imagine there could be some type of remedy for that.
The continued access to snowmobile trails always comes up in every one of our discussions and site plans when reviewing projects. We try very hard to maintain that. So
yep.
I assume we would do the same thing when this permitting comes up.
Okay.
Anybody else from the board?
I'd like to move.
Then, go ahead.
I'd like to move that we send to the select board the amendment to the Main Street portion from LRR2 to village residential.
Second
Recommending approval?
motion. Sorry.
I second that motion.
1 second, Steve. Sending and recommending approval, Greg, to the selectmen?
Should we just approve it as opposed to
It's a
send it to the
It's a
select
two-step
board?
process.
Okay.
Yes, you can just send it without recommending approval, or you can send it recommending approval. Whichever I didn't know which way you want to go with your motion.
My original motion will send it to the select board.
Without a planning board recommend.
No, with.
With a
He wants the whole thing.
recommendation.
He
Yep.
wants sending
You
it
want
to
the whole thing? Okay.
Recommendation.
Okay, so and it has been seconded by Steve.
Yeah, I second
Is
it.
there any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
From the Zoom crowd? Steve is aye. Kevin is
Abstaining.
abstaining. Robert is aye. And from those present?
Aye.
All ayes.
Aye.
All ayes. Okay, Mark, were you an aye?
Yep.
Okay, so it is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 601. The motion passes. It will be sent to the selectmen with the planning board's recommendation for approval. All right, that takes care of 2407. I think what the solar is our next kind of big issue.
Bob?
Even though it's really probably not present here. Yes.
I think they may also be interested in 2403. I think there's been a lot of interest in
Yes,
that one, so I don't know if you want to take that one.
Yes.
That's the
You could, sure, we could do that one next.
Okay.
Either one, whichever. Is 2403, more of the people are here for that one?
Yeah, so 2403 is an amendment to the commercial zoning standards that would allow for multifamily dwellings within the district. And that's the only change. There's some density language that's added as part of that, but that's primarily the amendment.
Is there any discussion for the board?
Yeah, Alex, question. A project similar to that would require planning board review?
Correct, yeah. A multifamily dwelling requires planning board approval. So for anyone to either build a new building or convert an existing building, it would have to go through site plan approval, meet all the site plan standards. Subdivision, yeah,
Have to go through
actually.
site plan and subdivision,
yeah,
because it's
through the
dwelling
planning
units,
board.
which count as part of the subdivision law.
Yep.
So it's a two-hitter.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And would that fall under downtown design?
It would still need to meet the downtown design guidelines.
Yep, so the architecture would have to be reviewed as well.
Yeah. So really, this amendment would just say that they can be done in this zone if they meet all of the standards and approvals and everything.
Any other board questions? Okay, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody that wants to speak either for or against?
This is 2403, multifamily in the commercial district. Peter?
Yeah, Peter Levitt, 2 Levitt Road. So multifamily housing in a commercial area would be along the lines of the growth areas, identifying the growth areas. Therefore, there has been discussion at the Comprehensive Plan Committee and the fact that if what we want to develop is something more in the way of a village, many components have to come together. So it just might be suggested that there'd be a situation where you might have a multifamily mix in there. You might end up with let's say, a 2-story building where there's a coffee shop on the bottom floor and an apartment over it. This addresses issues such as houses you can afford, not to be confused with affordable housing. And there seems to be some confusion there, and I've spent quite a bit of time trying to describe that to people. Affordable housing is very strictly defined. It's not an oxymoron. It's defined in state and federal definitions, what it is, what you have to make in order to qualify for loans and the like. That's affordable housing. A housing you can afford is a little bit of a silly statement right now. As we've learned in our studies so far in the comprehensive plan, probably 2/3 of the individuals in this room right now could not afford the home that they are in now if they had to buy it. Therefore, there need to be other alternatives in housing for an aging population. So I would speak in favor of this because, and with several other discussions, all I'd say is this: we can choose as a community to keep kicking this can down the road, or we can start thinking about proactively planning for it. Thanks.
Thanks, Peter.
We have one more speaker, Bob.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Jim Stevenson, 38 Clearwater Drive. I just have, I guess, a little bit of a concern since the commercial district is fairly confined as it is. I guess it's a question I'll pose to the board, will putting multifamily homes in the limited commercial district that we have and granted by the comprehensive plan, we're trying to particularly grow that district within the confines that it exists. Will putting multifamily usage in that commercial zone then restrict the ability of us to grow commercially in that very confined area? And I just want to leave you with that thought. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
One more, Bob.
Okay.
Andrew Broadus again, the attorney for the Friends of Clearwater. Your comprehensive plan in 2004 spelled out the purposes of districts. The commercial district, and I just might quote this, is to provide general retail, wholesale service, and business facilities in the area convenient to the residents of the town. This district shall fulfill the needs of the townspeople for many of their retail and service needs. In addition, it shall serve as the wholesale distribution for the town. A commercial district is for commerce, and it's not for multifamily housing. My concern is that while there are other ordinances here that you're going to talk about with affordable housing, they belong in residential districts, not in this commercial district. The White Pines proposal, I haven't seen it or know what they're proposing. The problem with multifamily is it can come in many different forms, some that may be palatable and some may not. But if you open the door in the commercial district for multifamily, I'm not sure where that's going to lead to, and there may well be a domino effect. And your commercial district may look very different and not serve the needs of the town. So I think you need to look at what the comprehensive plan is going to say about this before, again, not putting the cart before the horse, but having the comprehensive plan spell out the purposes of the districts. Because it's a slippery slope when you get into multifamily dwellings in a commercial area. And I've seen it happen, and unfortunately with a lot of towns, you can see where it changes the character of a town fairly quickly. And Raymond has limited resources to deal with multifamily. And there are ways, and some of these ordinances address multifamily. The ADU ordinance allows for that in other districts, but the commercial should remain commercial. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wants?
Yes.
Yes.
Hello, I'm Deke Gillies. 33 Plummer Drive. I also own lots on 1256 and 1258 Roosevelt Trail. I am for this. I think we need to have multi-units down where the resources are, where we have water, where we have walking paths and everything, and we need to be able to grow with the town. I mean, I understand some of the concerns, but I have one house is residential. I would love to make it a multi-unit of some sort, which is already a residential, but it's in a commercial zone and it's a mixed use. So I think that we need to, and if you look all down 302 where these commercials are, it's mixed already. It's not just all commercial, and it's a mixed use. Correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, but there's a lot in the mixed use zone. So I think it is important with the limited amount of land that we have for sale and the limited amount of growth that we have available. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. My name is Brandon Jaislow on 8 Reds Way. And I mean, I think for me, I'm just, I think we have to take a look at what the town's going to look like in 10 to 15 years when you're driving down 302. Do you want a bunch of multifamily buildings, or do you want thriving small businesses? And I think you open up Pandora's box a little bit, like this gentleman said over here, with the Friends of the Clearwater, when you start putting multifamily in commercial districts. I mean, it's not long before someone comes out of state, buys up a small mom and pop shop, and blows a multi-unit in there. And I just think keeping the, thank you again, keeping the commercial district for businesses is, I think, what it should be. That's all.
Thank you.
Is it the other one? Try the other button.
Peterson Road. There we go.
All in one. Okay, so I don't need to speak about Peterson.
Is there somebody else that would like to speak?
Yes, one more.
Yep. Thanks, Ed.
Jeff Morris, 13 Anderson Road. I'm just saying, I think what Deke was saying is that there's already residential houses on most of these commercial lots. I don't know that there's a difference between a single family and a double family, a 2-unit or a 3-unit. I think that it's still the same look going down the road if it's houses or if it's apartments or multifamily. So I'm for it. So.
Thank you.
So my name's Mary Gallipo. I live on Peterson Road, and I have for 45 years. I've watched the town change a lot. I've watched it change a lot, Greg, a lot. And I got to tell you, I'm a little concerned about the multifamily unit in the commercial zones. If you guys want a thriving commercial area, why would you put multifamily dwellings there? Why would you take up whatever precious land we have and put more people above the commercial areas? We need more businesses. No more, not multi-dwellings. I know you guys want to grow this town, but you're growing it wrong. I'm sorry. You're growing it wrong.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes.
And I've already come to this well, but I forgot to say something before. And correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't there other areas where multifamily homes can go relatively close to the 302 area? For instance, the VR1 that's up on 85.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are. It's not like we're blocking that from happening, and also currently, I mean, mixed use is of a commercial building is different than a multifamily dwelling. Mixed use means we have the commercial business there, and I think that's established already. So we have mixed use in terms of the allowance of apartments above commercial buildings, but what we don't have is the actual ability to have multifamily in that commercial zone now. Okay, but we do have it in other parts of the town.
Correct.
Okay,
You
thank
just village residential.
Yep.
You really do, because of mixed use, you have multi-unit over commercial.
Yeah. Is there anybody else?
No one else.
Nope.
All right, I close the public hearing on 24.03 and turn it back to the board for thoughts, discussions, and eventual motion.
I like the last speaker. I think we should change the ordinance amendment somehow, and maybe table it for now, but to allow for businesses on the first floor and residential, occupancy on the second
Kevin,
floor.
that's how, sorry to interrupt you, but that is currently allowed in the commercial zone.
Yep.
Right, okay, so then we don't need to, if that's currently allowed, then
The only
say
change that this would be would that you could have a structure, then it could be exclusively multifamily, because right now you could technically have a multifamily over commercial business.
Okay, then I'm good with the way, the status quo.
What's the, how about the feelings in the board there, which way we should go?
Well, I'm in favor.
I think I'm leaning, go ahead.
I'm in favor of the ordinance, the ordinance change. I don't know what anyone
Okay,
else.
thanks, Greg.
Wait, can you clarify that the ordinance change to have the residentials in there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, would allow them, allow multifamily.
Multifamily.
So I have a question. The only change would happen is now we can do 2 multifamilies instead of having commercial business on the first floor and then living space on the second floor. That would be the only change.
You could have exclusive multifamily structure versus the way it is now, it's only allowed as a mixed use. You have to have a commercial retail use on the first floor, and the only time that residential can come in is on the second or higher floors.
Okay. I guess I would agree with Greg then, in that case. I don't see an issue with it.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I actually feel differently on that. I personally feel that in the commercial zone, which there's not a lot of, removing the commercial component of it, I can't see the value of it. To me, I can only see still promoting mixed use, not higher density residential only.
Yeah.
That's my feeling.
And I know when we were going through this process, we were looking to see how we could have some transitional zones adjacent to the commercial district. It was part of the discussion that led us to the first conversation on 2407. But I think as the comp plan probably moves forward, that's something that maybe they can address going forward, is how can we get a little bit more multifamily closer to the commercial district. It's a tough balance act. It's a tight zone down through there, but it makes sense with the services, the utilities that we have available there, that they could support that kind of lifestyle, I guess I would say, and density. So
I agree completely. I like to see the comprehensive committee take that up if possible. I also feel that just by pure definition, commercial is not, multifamily is not commerce. So by definition, I'll have to pass on that. I don't feel that commercial zone should house multifamily by definition. So that, again,
Thank you, Mark.
If it gets pushed back and redefined, if we can have those zones closer, sure, but as it currently sits, it's not commerce.
If somebody does build a multifamily home, they can always convert it to commercial type use, as we have witnessed already with Port Harbor Marine. It's not a dead-end use as a multifamily necessarily.
Okay, I think we've kind of reached almost a consensus here. Motion one way or the other on how to deal with 24 TAC 3.
Mr. Chair, I know that you had.
We have three choices.
I know you had closed the public hearing, but we do have someone that wants to speak.
From Zoom World?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
If you're talking to me, I don't live in Raymond. I own property there, and I only owned it for 5 some years, and I have to agree with the people about keeping commercial. You don't have a very big commercial area, and that could be developed. I mean, if it was like if you could live upstairs and commercial downstairs, but I think commercial should stay commercial. But I guess that I realize you want people near the utilities, so I don't know how big of an area that is, but I really think commercial should stay commercial. You don't need multifamily homes running around businesses, and you got a lot of safety issues. You just got a lot of issues. That's my opinion.
All right, thank you. Okay, back to the board.
Guess we need a motion.
There's one more, Bob.
Oh, you do?
Okay.
Go ahead, Scott.
Thank you. Scott Rockwell, 10 Peterson Road. My question as a direct abutter, as with 2 other abutters, to the back lot of White Pines Inn is by following the commercial zone setbacks, requirements, you could effectively have a building pin to pin on that particular lot. And if in my short period of time just reviewing this particular part of the zoning ordinance, that could effectively put a shadow the size of a 3-story building on the direct butters, of which 3 of them are residential. And again, because it is a setback with no restrictions, if you interpret it exactly that way, there could effectively be a giant box of a building with a storefront, parking garage on the bottom, and 2 stories worth of is up top. So I think the particular case of the White Pines Inn is asking for such potential density, which would cast a shadow again on the abutters, but also more importantly, that particular parcel has ramifications on an entire neighborhood association, of which all the members in that association have beach rights, which again, that impact will be seen throughout, and I can't recall the number, but dozens, perhaps as many as close to 100 property owners in that neighborhood. So I bring to the board here just the attention to that particular detail. So when we say, yes, commercial with residential, mixed use is one thing, and it does allow for some of that commercial development of that particular property, of which it is currently commercial with the inn. But it also does create a conflict with the entire neighborhood association, of which that parcel is still a member of, and hence affecting every single one of the neighbors that are party to that association. So again, just because it's commercial doesn't necessarily mean by trying to stack up more units than perhaps that community can support. Yes, they would developers would have to meet all the other standards, and it does open up certainly a can of worms for that particular neighborhood. Again, my whole back lot is a direct abutting to it. Brandon's, I think, is abutted to it. And
okay, Scott, I think we
good.
Scott, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah. Welcome. Oh, your internet connection is unstable. Okay. Back to the board. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Sure can. I'd like to move that we...
I can, Bob. I don't know if they can or not.
Yeah, I can too.
I can hear you also.
We can hear you.
We're muted.
No, thanks.
no,
I just got a little
we can
note
hear you.
that said my internet connection was unstable. And I don't to me. Nope. How do we want to proceed with 24-03?
I'd like to move that we...
Board still there?
We can't hear you. Can't hear you, Greg. We gotta
No, he's muted or something.
Yeah, we got muted somehow.
Area is
There we go.
There we
Okay.
go.
Oh, good.
There
Okay.
they are.
I would like to move that the board approve the proposed amendment to
You guys are back.
2403 and forward it to the select board.
Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Okay, second to me. Steve, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Steve is in favor. I assume Greg is in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
And
Yes.
I can't see the board. Greg, okay. All
Hold on.
those that are opposed?
Just Greg here.
I
love being the.
Did you say?
So I have, right now I have Greg and Steve voting yes.
Yep, correct. He's frozen again.
All, who are opposed?
Opposed.
3 opposed here at the
And-
hearing.
Kevin is opposed via the,
Opposed,
and I am
yeah.
also opposed, so the motion fails.
2 to 5.
Okay. Motion does not pass. So I am going to take it then, since the motion to forward has failed, we're not going to be forwarding it. There's no reason to have a second vote.
Yep.
Everybody agree with that? All right, either I've lost everybody or you guys have gone quiet. Okay, 2403 has failed. Go and knock out the solar energy system, since those people are probably here with the solar project, and then we'll move over to the solar project itself, and then finish up with some of those admin things. Don't think anybody is going to be there for. Am I assuming that, is that assumption correct? Okay, so Alex, how about introducing 24.05 for us?
All right, so 2405 is amendment to the solar energy system section of the land use ordinance. And essentially that amendment would create a specific buffer standard section within that ordinance.
Okay. Is there any questions from the board? I will open up the public hearing for this, and I would just like to remind those that if they are going to speak on this buffering, I know that there is interest in a lot more changes to the solar project, to the solar energy system ordinance, but we can't really make that at this time. So that the option either is to not forward and stay with our current ordinance that deals with this, or to forward these changes. That's really our only two options at this point. I think the attorney for Mr. Wallace, and I think Mr. Hall, are you there in the room?
Good evening, Mr. Chair. I am. My name is James Bass. I'm an attorney from Augusta, and happy to answer any questions or happy to talk about the proposal.
Thanks. I actually, I think that at the select board meeting, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I'm attributing a comment to you that the revised ordinances, I'm assuming that you wrote, got maybe loosely quoting here, what shift at the planning board. Am I attributing that to you correctly?
Oh, I was unable to hear the quote that you're attributing me, that you're attributing to me.
You're breaking up.
Oh, short shift, S-H-O-R-T, S-H-I-F-T, short shift. At any rate, if not you, I'm assuming you're the one that wrote that, and I just wanted to let you know that the planning board received that 2 or 3 days prior to our workshop. Not nearly enough time to review it, analyze it, and get it into any kind of a formal change for this particular meeting to go to the select board. So I just wanted you to know that we didn't ignore it, and we have not ignored it. And there is sentiment on the board right now to continue the review process for the solar applications and solar ordinances in the future. But we needed time to be able to kind of work through that. This ordinance process, as I'm sure you're aware, takes anywhere from 10, 12, sometimes over a year before we reach this point. Actually, this one is kind of like record time. And I just wanted to let you know that that we are indeed going to continue to consider what I believe I'm attributing to you, what you wrote, or at least what the abutters have submitted.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. No, you did. I said that during the select board meeting. I understand. I mean, I appreciate that, the amount of time that you had to review our suggested changes to the solar ordinance was short, but I also recognize that per the recommendation from the select board, we supplied that information within the period of time so requested. So if it was only 3 days, it was only 3 days because that's the time that we got it. So what we wanted to do was, again, to provide a comprehensive ordinance suggestion for you, not bullet points, not ideas, but rather red line changes for your consideration.
Yes, and I do appreciate that, and I wanted to let you know that we are going to take that seriously and consider it. And I would assume that if all goes well, we will have a number of workshops that we will kind of work through that. And next year at this time, we'll be discussing another proposed change to the solar ordinance.
Great, appreciate
and maybe
that.
with even some of the stuff you contributed.
Wonderful, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so back to the board. Do you have any questions on the solar?
I have a question.
Hold on, he's not.
Yep, well, I'll get right back to you, ma'am.
Okay.
So no questions for Alex? Okay, then I will open the public hearing on 24.05. Ma'am, step up to the mic, you're all set.
Hi, Jennifer Danzig, 38 Pulpit Rock Road. So I just have a question just to follow up on that, because we were at the select board and we were told to submit any solar ordinance changes within that time frame. We did do that. You referenced that usually it takes a year to change an ordinance in record time, and that this one, or it usually takes up to a year, and this one you did in record time. So I guess my question is, why did you choose to change just that little piece, and how did that timing work out, and who suggested it? Because that wasn't open to public comment for suggesting that change.
Yeah, it was. It went through 3 workshops. And the change actually came from the board recommended the change based upon the site walk on that property that there is a application for right now.
Right. The site walk was in December, sir.
Yep.
So and there were not 3 workshops between December and the time that we were asked to submit the ordinance changes. There were not.
We could go back, and I'm pretty sure there were, but that's okay.
Okay.
At any rate,
well, I can go back too. There weren't any things open to the public to speak about ordinance changes on solar from the site walk in December of 2023 through today, which is March 20th, 2024. Within 3 months, there have not been 3 public meetings asking us if we wanted to make changes to the solar ordinance and what those changes should be. So I'm not sure how this one ordinance was changed for the buffer.
All of our workshops are open to the public. And if you go back to the agendas, I'm pretty sure you will find a number of workshops that we're dealing with ordinance changes. We don't get to this point without a series of workshops to get there. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I'll have
move
to
on.
go back and check.
Any other comments concerning the ordinance that's changed?
Yes.
Yep.
Laurie
Ma'am?
Wallace, 36 Pulpit Rock Road. At the last planning board meeting, the workshop, there was discussion about the number of feet for the setback. And the ordinance is indicating 50 feet. So I did, and we had suggested a much larger number. So someone said, where did your number come from? And it came from a lot of safety discussions online. But anyway, what I'm trying to say here is that I did a completely random search. I typed in setback solar in main municipalities, and I took the first dozen that came up, and they range anywhere from 50 to 200 feet. The average is 93.75 feet. That's almost twice as large as the size you're selecting for our protection from visual harm. In one of the towns, Casco, for example, has 50 feet, and that's okay. But they're also requiring utility connection approval prior to construction. Reed Field.
Remember, ma'am, I don't want to cut you off, but remember, this is just a for or against this particular change ordinance. If you are against the change of the ordinance that is currently on the books remains in effect. If we move forward, we increase the setback, and we will again address all of the changes that have been recommended out of this study into our next ordinance review workshops.
Thank you.
So if you would prefer not to have any change, then that's what you are speaking for. Is there anyone else?
Yep.
We got a line.
My name is Alyssa Messer. I live at 31 Pulpit Rock Road. I'll be speaking first for my daughter Annika and second for myself. I think there's a problem of communication here because many of us have come to the select board and stated our opinions, and they said this is not the place to state your opinions. Please take it to the planning board. And yet you're cutting off people's opinions here and saying, I only want to hear 1 or 2 sentences of your statement. So I would ask that you listen to my daughter, who is in 7th grade, who wrote this in accordance to the selectmen, in accordance to what they asked to prepare.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Annika, and I am a Raymond student. I think renewable energy is very important in our everyday lives, particularly looking into the future and keeping a sustainable and healthy life. I do think it is a great idea to have solar panels here in Raymond. But I am worried not only about our effect in the world around us, but how we are implementing these new innovative opportunities we have, like solar power. As the saying goes, there is a time and a place. I personally think that this is the right time, but the wrong place. If we go through with this particular solar panel field on top of Thomas Pond, we not only endanger countless species, but several streams and lakes and towns will be contaminated by the chemicals that the solar panels give off. According to Solar PEIS, the clearing and the use of the large areas in the land for solar power facilities can adversely affect native vegetation and wildlife in many ways, including the habitat interference and the rainfall drainage that directly contain and cause injury and or death. Putting this solar field means threatening the lives of countless species.
Ma'am.
No, I'm not going to be interrupted. Maybe even our own.
You're talking at the wrong time, ma'am.
I'm not talking at the wrong time because our selectmen asked us to bring this to you, sir, and I will continue to read. Putting our solar fields means threatening the lives of countless species and maybe even our own.
Ma'am, you're
our
talking at the wrong
lives in jeopardy
time.
would be in the wells, our own personal family well as those of our neighbors are within feet directly runoff of this field. Though you have done your studies, we have a direct runoff and direct videos that have been sent to the selectmen and yourselves that go directly to Thomas Pond from this property. And these lead and cadmium can seep out of the solar panels into the groundwater, go into the lakes, and go into Sebago Lake, where 1 out of 6 Mainers get their rainwater. That was quoted from Isabella Messer, who spoke to the selectmen, which, by the way, is a STEM representative for the state of Maine.
Your long statement is irrelevant to the issue we're discussing. We're discussing making a change to the land use ordinance.
It has to do with a change.
It has to do with
this solar field has no business being in a residential area.
That's not what we're discussing. We're talking
the next thing.
That's not what we're talking about. This topic here, not the global.
We're talking
solar
about
field.
We're talking about a solar ordinance. You're talking about the solar project. They're two different distinctions.
We're not talking about the project.
The solar ordinance was written for us to vote on, and many of us have talked to you about it.
Is that correct?
Yes, we are. That's correct.
Many of us have talked to you about it, that it was written as though we wanted to have our neighbors, would you like to have a solar on your house? Sure, put it on your house.
But we're not,
None of it
we're
was
not
ever
talking about
intended
that.
to put a commercial
You're in a different
solar farm.
Apples and oranges. We're talking about two different
right.
things. We're not talking about that.
You guys saying what you talked about, that you guys are going to talk about later tonight.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yes.
But we're not talking about that right now.
You're going to get this opportunity. Like, they're gonna have it again.
But it has to do with the setback.
Oh, sorry. And
The setbacks
setback-
have to be there,
The
and
setback
that's part of this.
that you're proposing
I didn't hear anything about it.
has to do with.
No, I didn't hear anything about setback. I heard about cadmium and lead running off of, that's not what this is about.
Because it's within the
That's
feet
not
that.
what this is about. That's not what
It
this is
is,
about.
I just read it to you, you didn't hear it.
Oh,
It's within feet of our well. It's within feet of our well.
The
You guys
current
say
discussion
25
right this
feet.
minute.
You haven't
Excuse
come
me,
to our
excuse
property,
me.
you haven't come to
May I
Dave's
talk?
property, it runs within feet of our well.
Yeah, we're not talking about that right now.
So
Current
25 feet
discussion-
is not gonna do it.
Is only on whether this particular ordinance
That
goes forward, is
particular
not-
ordinance is
This is-
25
we can't
feet.
change. We can't change this ordinance now. That is not possible for us to change this ordinance on the fly. So we're going to talk about this. Then we're going to talk about the project after that.
Which
So
is
we're
why we
only
asked for
talking
a
about the
moratorium.
current. The only thing we're talking about is the wording of this ordinance, whether we post it and give it to the selectmen or we deny it. If we deny it, then the current ordinance that stays in effect, which has less setback.
Right.
You want.
So that's the only thing we're talking. We're not talking about the shape of the ordinance or anything else, just what's on paper. And then later on tonight, in a few minutes, whatever, we're going to talk about what you want to talk about, which is the current project, the solar project.
My name is Dave Hall, and I'm at 32 Pulpit Rock. And I think what you're seeing is what you're asking for, the proposed change, is not nearly enough. You've asked for a change from 25 to 50 feet, or 20 feet to 50 feet, and that is a help. That it is correct that if you have to pass something tonight, you should be passing that. It is at least better, but you have not done nearly enough. And it makes sure that the current proposal, that it works within the current proposal. If that ends up going through, nobody's going to be saying, oh, it doesn't meet what you're proposing. I think that's what you're getting from irate neighbors, that what you're proposing tonight isn't nearly enough. And it seems like it was set at a rate to make sure that the proposal that we're so adamantly against, that as much as the people working to propose the project have worked so hard to propose the project, the community has worked so hard to tell you it's not the right place for it.
Yep.
So please do pass the 50 foot, but it's not enough.
Peter Levitt, 2 Levitt Road. I'm speaking as a citizen here, not as any committee member. What I will tell you is this. I am in support of increasing the buffer. It makes perfect sense. I do concur with the gentleman that just spoke. Obviously, there's more work to do on this, but that's not what we're discussing tonight. I just want to add one other thing. It was suggested to me last night and then again tonight that some individuals in the town have concerns about the public notice for meetings and for ordinance changes and public meetings and the like. 34 years involvement with the town in one capacity or the other on committees and the like, and I can tell you, I believe that the town follows those regulations for notice. And if people are not getting noticed for those issues, understand that that's state statute. You know, and if you're not satisfied with that you are being noticed, if you're in a butter and they're going to do a zoning change, you know, you have, and you don't get satisfaction here, you can get relief at Superior Court. Thanks.
Thanks, Peter.
Sure. Jeff Messer, 31 Pulpit Rock Road. Point of clarification, if you do recommend this to the Board of Selectmen and they vote in favor, is it retroactive on all projects?
No. It is not retroactive.
So what has to be done to make it retroactive?
moratorium.
There is no way to make an ordinance retroactive that I know of.
Okay, then I would recommend you vote this down because it doesn't support what we're here for tonight, and you recommend a moratorium on all solar projects.
Okay.
That's what makes sense. Obviously, you failed to put together a solid ordinance, as the chair has already pointed out, that you're going to have to spend the next year crafting a better ordinance because the one is grossly inadequate. And why push through this project? I think the only reasonable thing to do is have a 6-month or 1-year moratorium so you can actually figure out what the proper way
Okay, but
is.
we're not talking about a moratorium. All the discussion is on whether or not we are going to, how we are going to address the proposed change for the setbacks 24-3. That's the only
Right,
thing that's really
I'm saying
on
you've done it
discussion.
poorly.
Okay.
Hi, Bob Wallace, 36 Pulpit Rock Road. I think you're starting to feel some of the frustrations that we have been feeling. This is our 4th time here. We've been in front of the select board 3 times. We asked them for a moratorium. They went in the back and talked to the lawyer and came back and said no. But to bring it to the ordinance that's up for discussion, wherever that 50 feet came from, maybe it came from Casco, maybe it just came out of the air from somewhere, is certainly not enough to protect a residential area from a commercial solar farm. Plain and simple. Think about it. 50 feet is from this door, not even to that back door there. That's 50 feet. That's not enough.
So you are...
Something
you're
funny, Ed?
opposed?
Yeah, I don't think it's 50 feet from that.
I did. I measured it before the meeting today. I'll get you. We'll go out. I'll meet you out. I'll show you.
Which door? This door?
You're talking about the outside door.
I thought you were pointing to this door.
I thought you were
right
talking
here.
about this door here.
No, not this door. The other outside.
Okay.
That's about 30 feet.
Okay, so I'm going to close the public hearing on 2403. I think we got a little off track. Discussion on the board?
Mr. Chair, if I just could make a quick statement just to answer one of the abutters.
Please.
The 50-foot buffer strip came from our current setback for commercial uses when they abut a residential zone. We applied the same standard for any commercial use, solar farm, mausoleum, whatever you want to put in there for a commercial use, contractor. When there's a commercial zone and there's a commercial use against that, the town standard in the commercial zone has been 50-foot setback. We just applied the same methodology of a commercial use against a residential zone. It wasn't arbitrary. That's just where we came from. So that's it.
Thanks, Jim. The board, any discussion or motion?
Do I get to move all these? I move that the board vote in favor of amending ordinance 2405 and send it to the select board. Ought to pass.
Thanks, Greg. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And from Zoom, I vote
Unanimous.
yes. Kevin
Aye.
does. And Steve has voted yes. So unanimous. Okay. Alex, I don't think you being in the room there, any of the other changes are impacting, I guess, or getting community involvement. Is that correct?
As far as I'm aware, yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So I'm going to hold the other changes, the administrative changes, so we don't keep everybody here, and move to our second item on the agenda, which is the solar farm application. And I'd ask Jim to give us a rundown on that to start with.
Sure. Okay, Mr. Chair, the applicant, Allen Solar Power LLC, has come in with an updated plan. Within that plan, they have decreased the number of panels and have provided a longer, I'll say a more distant setback from the property in the rear, which is the primary change to this application. I know at the last meeting, the board had requested that they provide consideration for the visual assessment and come back with some kind of plan. Besides the increase of setback, I did not see that there were any kind of report or assessment done for the visual or for a buffer. So I think that is primarily going to be the largest discussion. This plan also requires 2 permits from the state of Maine, DEP, one being a stormwater permit, which they're in the process of acquiring now, and the second would be an NRPA permit by rule for disturbance within the buffer for some vernal pools located on the property. I know we have received some requests since the last meeting about addressing the assessment done for the vernal pools. I would just like to point out to the board that the town does not have a vernal pool ordinance or even a wetland ordinance. That jurisdiction is up to the Maine DEP. And as far as a third party of that, I don't know if the town can even do that under our ordinances for the vernal pools. I think that would be something that we could wait to see how the DEP rules. And I would suggest this evening that you not approve this until such time as we have those approvals from the DEP, both from the stormwater and the wetland vernal pool impacts. As far as stormwater goes, we have reviewed those plans. We feel that they are sufficient and meet the town standards for stormwater runoff. Again, we're looking at quantitative and typical TSS removal from the stormwater. That's what our ordinances are based on. I know there may be other claims about other components within that stormwater, but that's what we look at. We follow the same Chapter 500 as the main DEP. So the DEP will also be chiming in on that stormwater. If the board feels that it wants a third-party review, it could request a third-party review for the stormwater, but I feel that in the past, we have relied on the DEP and have had good information from them. So, again, nothing has really changed much within this solar field other than the shrinkage of the actual compound to pull it away from the rear property line. So I guess at that point, I'd let the applicant make their presentation.
Can I have a question to you, Jim?
Yep.
Is there anything in the DEP or the stormwater ordinances that we have that addresses, because the lady, and I don't know if it's the last meeting or not, at some point made a really good suggestion. She got up there and was talking about the land. Once you strip the land, you change the whole environment, and it's not a stormwater issue, it's just a natural change in what's running off of that land.
Correct.
Once you've stripped everything off it.
Yes.
And that affects the downstream.
Like half an hour.
You know, that affects the downstream issues. And is there anything that we can have a study on that to see what those effects are?
That would be, how do I word this? That is computed and calculated in the stormwater calculations, because that went from a wooded surface to now a meadow or grass surface. So that is considered when looking at the stormwater runoff. It's basically called a curve number, which is based on how quick the water can permeate. Obviously, in a forest, the water can permeate much faster than it can on your lawn or versus a parking lot.
Right, but there's a time frame of that when you've changed the environment where you've disturbed the soil, and then it goes back to whatever you're going to have downstream. You know, so then it becomes a meadow. But between the digging of everything and, do they do the proper bermage during the digging or the disturbing of the soil?
So you're talking about like erosion control? Is that what you're concerned? Yeah, there's an erosion control plan that they've submitted for the construction of this during the construction. to keep
Okay,
that
so make sure
runoff
that
from.
everybody's on, is aware of that, and then what's going to happen, because that lady had an excellent point of disturbing the environment.
Yeah, that's part of the
Again,
stormwater permit. It's part of our review as well, that they have adequate erosion control with barriers of either mulch or a silt fence to protect those threatened or resources.
I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that that does happen.
Yep, that has happened. So I think it'd be, I'm done with my presentation, so I don't know, Mr. Chair, would you like to turn it over to the applicant to make a presentation, or the board?
Yes. No, I'd like to hear from the applicant at this time.
If you could allow Kirk Ball from Akron to speak. He's the engineer of record on the site, so I'll let him take it from here. He's online. He's on Zoom.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, is everybody familiar with the plans? Would you like Sandy to allow me to show the plans, or is everybody familiar with them?
Yeah, I think we are pretty familiar. You haven't changed the plan itself, right?
Well, we've changed the plans, and Jim summarized it pretty well. We did reduce the number of panels, essentially the output of the project. We did move the setback of the structures, which we're considering the solar panels a structure, to 70 feet. However, the initial submission had tree clearing right to the property line, right along the Danzig's and the Wallace's property line. We have moved that out to 35 feet as well. So we've moved the tree cutting onto the Allen property as well, or onto the solar site. So we're not clearing right up against the property line. And in addition, so that area now will have southern exposure, and you'll obtain the edge effect where the shorter shrubs will come up and actually naturally create a visual screening, maybe temporary, but it certainly can be maintained to provide that screening in the future. Stormwater, Jim was spot on. Per the ordinance, we need to meet the general standards of Chapter 500. We selected that. We're also, because in the Chapter 500, you do not have to meet the phosphorus standards in Chapter 500. We have exceeded the treatment in this particular project. We designed that on purpose, knowing that Thomas Pond is a water body most at risk. And we've shown that and demonstrated that we also meet the phosphorus standards. So the DEP in Chapter 500 has a allowable discharge budget for every project that would be within the watershed. As designed, the project exceeds that by 1.5 times than what is allowable. So I think that's a demonstration to the board that under the stormwater piece, we're actually exceeding expectations of Chapter 500.
Okay. There are questions from the board for either Jim or Kirk?
I know, Kirk, do you have any idea when you might be getting your permits from the state?
Good question, Ed. So we have checked the PBR, and the PBR focuses on the vernal pool impact and the critical terrestrial habitat. That PBR has been, the status of that is approved. So when it comes to the vernal pools and the wetlands, the DEP has reviewed it and approved it. I did check in with the project manager this afternoon on the status of the stormwater permit application. The application was deemed complete yesterday, and they will begin their review, and the statutory completeness for that permit application is June 17th. Typically the DEP, it's changing a little bit. They used to go right to the limit of the statutory completeness deadline. However, they are staffed back up in the engineering department, so we're hoping that we're going to get a review or comments back sooner than that date.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments from the board?
Yeah, can you just explain the fence or type of fence specifically above the against the residential line in the back?
Yeah, that has been changed since the initial submission. We had a chain link fence, and I think it maybe even had barbed wire on the top. So we are transitioning back to what is now commonly acceptable throughout the state, and it's called a solid lock fence wire knot. So it's a coated fence that's used out west. It is the exact same fence that you would see off the highway in gray.
How tall is that fence required to be?
I believe NEC code is 7 feet above grade. However, they only come in certain lengths. I think it's 7 feet. And then IF&W in this common practice to leave a wildlife gap underneath the fence of 8 inches. So I think that fence will be, anywhere between 7.5 to 8 feet tall.
Any idea what color it's proposed?
We did not select color. I think they either probably come in a green or a black coat.
And do they have, I guess, non-shiny coatings?
Yes, I think it's black or green.
Yeah, flat paint, basically.
Flat paint, yeah. It's like a rubber coat, dip coat. I think it's dipped in some sort of a plastic material, a vinyl or something like that.
Thank you.
Dave Fowler, just to add on to that, you know, if the abutters wanted something that is less visual through, I'd be happy to discuss. Whether it's a lot of times they'll put a green mat, they'll go back to the chain link, but put a green mesh over it. The air can go through it and the water can go through it, but it's less visual than seeing right through. Where you're going to see right through the fence that we have proposed, which is again what's been standard industry, but happy to talk about it.
Okay. Other questions from the board?
This is a different fence than the walkthrough?
I don't know for sure. Okay. Ma'am, we'll get to the public hearing in a minute.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Is there any other questions from the board? Concerns? Okay.
Good call.
I do have a couple of questions. And to summarize, before I open, I don't know, did I lose everybody?
Nope.
Okay. Before I open the public hearing, from comments that I have gleaned that are pertinent from both the comments made to the selectmen and the comments made at our last, it wasn't an official public hearing, but the last time we received comments from the abutters, I've kind of jotted down some notes there, and I know it's not complete, but I would like to kind of address some of these before I open the public hearing. The concerns were visual impact, noise from 302 once the trees have been removed, the landscaping buffer and the size of the buffer and what's going to be in the buffer, the environmental concerns to the, and I'm just going to use the term loosely, but to the vernal pools, and I guess that's it. I got a couple other things, but I think they're not any longer pertinent. There are two things that I'd like to discuss with the board first before I do open the public hearing. In our ordinance for the solar, in the Chapter 9, it does say that the board can request a visual inspection. I'm not exactly sure, by a landscape individual to determine the visual impact of the proposed solar farm on the neighborhood. Is that correct, Jim? Am I remember that correctly?
It's under 30927C. Actually, no, sorry. D, which talks about visual impact assessment, shall at a minimum include the following elements, and it has 4 different discussion points on that. But it is ultimately up to the planning board what it feels has been appropriate to mitigate measures to adjacent properties or public visuals from public ways.
Okay, so for the board, I'm proposing that we move, and not at this point, but that we consider exercising our option there and getting some third party, if you will, or some experts in the landscaping, whatever we want to call that, to take a look at what the end result is going to be and what the visual impact is going to be to the neighborhood by this project. The other thing that I would like to ask is under Section E, we have the surface water drainage. I know Jim just talked about that, and Kirk talked about the amount that's going to leave the project, and the water that's going to leave the project. I am kind of interested, and I know that correct me if I'm wrong, Kirk. I know that all of your studies were actually done on the property, so I'm kind of wondering if I think, and you guys tell me if I got the name wrong, but I believe there's a stream that goes by the Mr. Hall's property. Is that correct, guys, out there?
Yes. No, there's nods, yes.
Yep. Yeah, okay. So I would feel really comfortable in getting a peer review of that surface water drainage runoff and specifically ask Mr. Hall or whoever other property that stream goes through to give permission to that third-party review to sample and test those waters, that water that's coming out of that again, I'll call it a wetland. So I would like the board to kind of to consider those two things before we've moved forward with the public hearing, if we could.
Bob, could I just being an engineer background here, are you specifically looking for the runoff, the quality? Are you going to run a baseline for various minerals, pollutants? What are you looking for within that testing?
Well, one I'm looking for, I mean, this is the perfect time of year to check out, and we know these the wetlands come and go and change annually. But I would like to take a look at what, in fact, that is in that wetland area right now, whatever we decided that is, and also what is coming out of that wetland, so that when this project moves forward, if it does move forward, there's going to be water that we know that is going to go into that wetland and leave that wetland, and will that indeed happen, and what would be what is the anticipation of what that water quality will be, and I'm just kind of looking for maybe a third party that would come in and give both us and the community a little bit more of a feeling for the impact of the project on Thomas Pond.
So it's a combination of kind of a laboratory analysis and a visual analysis, right?
Correct.
For the quantitative aspects of the stream.
Yeah, quantitative with a little qualitative in there.
Yeah, got understood. Just trying to get some details.
I would agree with that, Bob, as well. It'd be nice to see what kind of buffer and have some type of third-party analysis on the buffer itself, and either A or B, the reflection of the solar panels to the neighborhood itself.
Okay,
and
thank you, Steve.
I agree too, Bob, with both those things, because that's what I was trying to get at earlier, is the nature of what the land that's going to run into that is going to be changed, and what will that change, what's currently running out of that wetland.
Yeah, baseline water quality analysis.
Yep.
It would be like for nutrients
Yep.
and coliforms, I think. Or
Yeah, the coliforms, heavy
Phosphorus.
metals, those type of things. BOD.
For what it's worth, the U.S. Forest Service has done extensive studies on forest soils at Hubbard Brook in New Hampshire, and they've done everything around a particular stream. They have a dam, and they've measured all these things you're talking about. They've done everything. They've run skidders through the wetlands, through the stream bed, and Bill Leake, who did these studies, said that these situations recover very quickly in a matter of months. So maybe it would be a wise thing to look into some of the studies that have been done by the U.S. Forest Service. It was done in the White Mountains, I believe. soils that are similar to what we have, glacial tills.
Those readily online, Greg? Those studies?
They may be. I've never looked for them online, but
That might be something for the third party to consult.
Yep.
Dave Fowler, just for, I also have on Zoom the wetland scientist who performed the studies on site. So if you've got any questions for him, he is available. His name's Roger St. Amand. He's from Watershed Resources. So if you want to have any questions with him in regards to this specific wetland you're referring to.
Thanks.
Kirk is here again about the testing. I have extensive experience working up and down the Androscoggin River. I worked on Gulf Island Pond, doing nutrient studies and phosphorus studies. I understand your concern. This would require an extensive water quality program where you would need to get the initial testing done, and then you would have to require subsequent testing after the project is built. So I don't think any third party is going to be able to come in here and tell you anything with the chemical pieces that are part of that wetland. I also want to point out that if you take a look at the plan, there is a subcatchment that's associated with that vernal pool that we're talking about that's behind Mr. Hall's property. All that is going, there's a very slight piece of grading that is going on, and then some tree clearing. That is it. There is no gravel, there is no solar panels, so there is a fence and some tree clearing around that specific wetland. Any effect to that wetland will be de minimis, and I'm sure that any third party that you would bring in would come to the same conclusion.
Yeah, I'm not questioning, Kirk, your competence or what is there. I would just feel, I know that the neighbors are concerned, and I think I personally would feel much more comfortable having a peer review conducted, and it's just as another piece of the puzzle to move forward.
So will the board be
you.
establishing the standards to evaluate this? Where are the standards coming from to evaluate the phosphorus levels, the nutrient levels that are in this wetland? Are you guys setting that standard? Are you setting limits?
No, but I think that we have in the past requested the Cumberland County Conservation to come in and do a kind of a peer review of what is being proposed, and actually an on-site study. And I think that's what I'm looking for right now. I don't want to guess that it's going to be exactly what you've come up with. I would think it probably is going to come very close, or maybe. But I think personally, on moving the project, and this is not as a chair, but only as a member, moving the project forward, I would like that second piece of information to base my decision upon.
Okay, so I hope for the benefit of our client that you are defining what that additional information is.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't see this as a peer review. This is additional studies, right? This isn't a peer review of what's been described.
This would be, well, the only one that would be a study would be the third party for the buffer. That could be
the stormwater.
No, for the buffer. There's two pieces that they're looking at the third party. One was visual, and one is the qualitative aspects of the stream and the vernal pool. So I think the vernal pool piece is more study.
Yeah, exactly.
The third party for the buffer is just that. That's more of an inspection.
Yeah.
Review of what.
And more of a design.
Right.
And I would hope that they would give us a little bit of a design on the visual.
Or give us some
as well.
Recommendations. I understand the visual side. I'm more trying to understand.
Yeah, the peer thing is that if you do all those quantitative review, I guess, is that to establish, Bob, that are we going to make them do a post review? Because, I mean, the quantitative piece is only valuable if we make them do something after the second part.
That's true.
Yep. There's no measurable.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So, I mean, how would that be something we'd work into an approval or a condition that they have to do a follow-up upon completion?
I'm not sure there's much value in that,
That's why I'm asking,
I guess
yeah.
it could be some value in it, in that if the project were to go forward and a follow-on study was conducted, then we could have mitigating actions to what might be found.
Yeah, I mean, I think right? What you may be asking for is more of an environmental scientist to probably go in, assess the quality of the wetland, the stream, from a visual standpoint, and make his assessment based on their knowledge of the species that may be in there. I guess he could take a grab sample, test it at a laboratory for a future baseline.
Yep.
But I think the visual assessment and their knowledge of the species and plant life is probably more valuable than the actual laboratory, is what I'm getting at.
Right. Okay.
But you can have both. You can have both. I'm just trying to figure out what the board's looking for here. Basically, a third party. It's kind of a. Are you asking for a third party of what they've submitted, or do you want the third party to physically go out in the field and reassess?
Yeah, good question. Actually, I'm asking for a little bit of both. I'm asking for a peer review of the stormwater runoff that has been proposed and is in fact part of the application right now. And I'm asking for the visual inspection of the property with the wetlands and what is actually that is including, which Kirk obviously couldn't do on Mr. Hall's property.
So I think in the past, as your knowledge, Bob, we've used Chris Baldwin at Cumberland County Soil and Water. I think it may be relevant to reach out to Chris again and get his input because he will look at, to your earlier point, he'll look at the erosion control practices. He often does peer reviews with the DEP, so he's very acclimated to what the requirements are.
Okay. How's the board feel?
I think it's a
Jim,
good
can I
idea.
ask you one more question? I mean, it might be stupid, but if you have the hill that's there and you cut the trees on the hill and you replace it with a field, basically with the solar panels on it, further up the hill, the runoff that used to come down there, the trees absorbed much more of that runoff from further up on the hill. And as you come down now, that runoff is going to have more effect going across the field because the grass is not going to absorb as much. And the trees had before absorbed a lot more. So the uphill portion of the runoff is now going to affect that lot and run into the wetlands than into the brook. Is that a wrong assumption?
Well, I think Kirk answered that they're directing a lot of the runoff to the west side where they've got their treatment. That's what we look at when we look at hydrology and runoff. We look at those characteristics and the changes from wooded to grass to pavement, whatever it should be on any site. Those are all computed into the calculations as to what the runoff impacts are.
Again, I'm just trying to make everybody aware of what
those, and I'll let Kirk answer that since he's the one that did the design, but yes, all those characteristics are inputted into the design and the model.
Jim is 100% correct.
Well, I've never heard that before.
Don't tell my wife, please.
So, Mr. Chair, have
Okay,
you
so
moved?
I'm not. I'm going to do it right now.
I was just checking to see
I'm
if you.
going to try to move this along. I'm sorry?
I was checking to see if you've moved into the public hearing portion of this debate or this discussion, or if this is still having a discussion amongst the board.
This is still having a discussion amongst the board, but since you're there and you want some, if you have something to say, you can go ahead and do it.
Sure. So again, my name is James Bass. I'm the attorney for the Danzigs and the Wallaces. I've got 3 points. The first is when we came into this meeting this morning, somewhat felt like a whole day, the dominant discussion was about Clearwater. And it sounded like for someone who was not aware of that issue, that you had heard from the community in that regard, you had taken that into account, and then you moved based upon where the community was. And so it would seem to be the same position that a lot of those community members had in regards to that project is the same emotion and the same passion that these community members have in regards to this project. So I just ask you to consider that frame of lens as you view this. The second is, we are here, and I'm here tonight because we were at the select board last week. And when they came out of the executive session, and Mr. Chair, I think you were in there, the suggestion that we got from the select board chair was to come to the planning board and ask for a third-party peer review. And per the ordinance section, section 300-10-3A5 and 10.3C5 in regards to minor site plan, you have that ability. So what we've done, and I've tried to help this board out, is I've contacted 6 environmental and engineering firms to see if they have the interest and capacity to take on a third-party peer review. I talked to Cumberland County Soil and Water, and they unfortunately, this is outside of their expertise, a lot of the stormwater, because that's going to go on the engineering side, and they focus more on the environmental side. I spoke to Biodiversity Research Institute from Portland. They don't have capacity. I spoke to Flycatcher in Yarmouth. This is outside of their expertise. I got in touch with Teradid Consulting. I talked to TRC, and I talked to Stantec. When I talked to Stantec, they said we do have interest in capacity. What I've also done, and I can send this out to the board, and I can supply this to board members right now, is we've put together a draft statement of work of what this third-party assessment would look at, both on the engineering side and on the environmental side. So as this board is looking to figure out, well, what are we asking somebody to do? Are we asking them to do a baseline study? Are we asking them to do a visual assessment? Are we asking them to review the application to see if it complies or conforms with the ordinance? Are we asking them to take a more comprehensive and broader approach to this issue? What we got from the select board was that there was a strong interest in having a broader, more comprehensive analysis done on this project, not just limited to the site itself, but limited to the areas outside that could impact the site. So what I would like to offer is this draft statement of work to help focus your work. If there is an interest in moving with a third party, I think this sharpens their interest and allows them, whoever you're going to contact, and again, Stantec does have the capacity and they're ready to go if called upon, to do this analysis, and it helps them and it focuses their work.
Wow. Thanks, James. I'll tell you, you have to take all that back to the selectmen, though. I'm only kidding.
Too soon.
James, did you? Yes. Please turn that over to Alex. That draft work. Thank you very much. I'm not going to guarantee we're going to do exactly all that, but that certainly helps.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Back to the board. To start with, I think I'm just going to move ahead here. I would make a motion that in accordance with Chapter 9, I'm trying to find it in my notes right here, that we, in accordance with Chapter 9, Section D, that we formally request a visual impact assessment to be conducted and some design standards to come out of that for the buffer area between the project and the homes. And I'd also, I know it's outside their scope, but just as an asterisk to address some of one other issue, I'm wondering if they could talk a little bit about what that buffer would do to the noise. So I'll make that. That was all. That was a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Kevin seconds. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Robert is aye. And from the board, I can't see you guys.
Aye.
Good.
Okay, so I think that
Not unanimous.
has passed. All those opposed and abstentions? Okay, and Greg abstains.
No,
So
I
motion is
oppose.
passed.
Nick opposed. It goes 6-1-0.
So Dave,
610. Oh, I'm sorry.
Dave here, just real quick. So do we have a scope of work?
I don't know if we.
So the scope of. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
We I don't know if we have it, we have a set of scope that the abutters have put together, but I don't know if that's what the board wants. I mean, I guess,
Not necessarily.
No, I wouldn't.
I think our staff should come
No.
up with the scope of what we want.
Yeah, thought that was the next part of this was a discussion moving forward, see what that scope is to define it.
Yes, I agree.
But
I'm not sure we'll get that done tonight, though. What do you think, Jim? Is there a way?
I'm just quickly reading through this. I don't know if there's. Yeah, I don't see, initially, I don't see anything of substance that would not be normally done.
Can I request we table this and reconsider it once we've had a chance to review this?
I
And
think that's, I mean, we just received it, so I think
and then
that's fair.
the town
fair
comes
object-
up with a proposal for what I'm looking to do?
I think
Yes.
I think it's fair for the board, this to be shared with the board and the staff, so we can look at it with the applicant, and then off the cuff, just looking at it quickly here, I don't see anything that's not absurd, put it that way. I think it's all relatively fair review. But I haven't gone in detail what that means. I think it's pretty close to a standard, a lot of the standard review, and, but let's look at what these really mean when we have time.
Okay, so I think then on the peer review, I'm a little concerned on the timing because we are at the critical point as far as the weather goes. But I don't want to just rush into what we're requesting.
Well, I don't think that
So I think that
discuss the
go ahead.
finding.
Who's ever talking?
Yeah, their request is to look at the findings of the vernal pools.
Maybe we had him get up and maybe explain.
Did you, who was the gentleman, Mr. Bass? Did you, within this, did you request that they review again in the field or just review their assessment? With that, what you're asking here, you ask them to go back in the field, or you just ask them to review the documentation?
Both. So it is to review the applicant's application to see if it complies with the land use ordinance, number one.
Yep.
And then two, it is to go back and in a sense sort of a de novo review and to make an assessment of the area. But again, what I got from the select board was a broader, more comprehensive study, not just the site, not just not just tax map 68 lot 4, but rather what would this impact to abutters? What would this do to neighboring properties? What would this do to the ecosystem in the watershed?
So, Mr. Chair, I guess the question is how how do we handle something that's outside our normal standards and requirements?
What makes you think it is?
To go beyond the property, I don't know. Again, to their point, I don't know what standards we apply. You're doing a study that, and I assume that the third party is going to be doing this study. The applicant hasn't had an opportunity to do this study. That's what I'm getting at.
They had their chance. They didn't do it.
Well, they met the requirements of the ordinance. You're asking them to go above and beyond the ordinance now. It's their No, please, you gotta go to the mic. I'm just trying to be
Well, wait,
impartial.
we're not in a public hearing. Hang on just 1 second. I think from being at that select meeting, I think that was the gist of what Chair Bruno was trying to say, but I don't think that that study based upon the ordinance, which is why I was kind of struggling with getting somewhere in off the property with a peer review, but I don't think we can go to, being a watershed and expect the applicant to be able to perform a study of the watershed. Well, I'm looking for suggestions.
Open it up for public comment.
Yeah, provide public comment then.
I would think that on this issue, we do want a peer review. We just have yet to figure out exactly what that peer review would look like. Is that, as far as the board goes, is that pretty much accurate?
I think it is. I think that's fair.
Like, I can pass that down for you guys to kind of look at.
So would it be fair that the board requests the town to meet with the applicant and James, if you are willing, to determine what that kind of peer review would look like? Is that, and we would address it then at the next meeting? Is that,
I'm sorry.
how's that sound?
Sure, Mr. Chair. So this is James Bass. I'm happy to meet with the applicant and the town to talk about this. I would say again, if you were looking for direction, we provided a draft statement of work. Jim looked at it and said, "Geez, this looks pretty reasonable." I'm happy to meet and talk more about it. But if what we've provided looks reasonable and is in line with Joe Bruno's comments at the select board, I think you've got the direction. But that's just a suggestion. I'm happy to meet with the applicant and happy to meet with the town.
Yeah,
But we may have the answer in front of us.
I just think that, again, it's in the details of how in-depth you go into each one of these things.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I think that's where the conversation with you, the applicant, and the town is important.
Sure, no, and again, we're taking our lead from the concern that we have and the direction they got from the select board was this needs to be broad. Again, on Mike from the select board was the developers consultants may be good, but they're the developers consultants. And so that's why the regulation in your land use ordinance allows you to have a third-party assessment of the area. I mean, again, we're coming here at the strong suggestion of the select board.
Yeah, James, I think what we can have is a third-party assessment or review of what the applicant has submitted. The board has never gone beyond, I'm not saying we can't, but the board has never gone beyond that.
Sure, no, I understand.
To look what Chair Bruno was actually talking about.
Sure, and
I can't recall we actually did that.
No, I understand. And again, if it's so global, it doesn't give you direction. But we're talking about, I think, the lot in question and then the abutters. The abutters can then get permission for an assessment to be done on their land. So,
yes,
I mean, this is a known universe. So we're not having to think about, geez, what are the impacts in a conceptual watershed that is unknown and undefined. Rather, we can look at the land, look at the abutters. They can give written permission for an assessment to come on. That's easy to do.
Yes, and I agree. And I think and that would actually be a volunteer assessment by the abutters, not being directed by the planning board. Is that?
Well, no. I think the assessment would be directed by the town to the third-party engineer. The scope of work would include the lot and also the abutting properties. At which point they'd give written permission to allow that assessment on their land.
Okay.
I just want to say,
All right.
remember, we're talking about a thing that has three shoreland zones, as well as earlier you asked, would Dave Hall give permission, and I would give permission. I think it's reasonable to say, given how much of a shoreland zone this is, this project abuts 3 different shoreland zones. It is packed into the corner. 3 sides of this project are shoreland zone on the map. Sorry, that's what I'm trying to say. It's reasonable to say, what is this project going to do to the surrounding shoreland zone? There are also tributaries running off this. It's reasonable to say.
Yeah, and I see your point.
Just let me get back control here for a second. We don't have, kind of my fault, we don't have the public hearing open yet. I did have some questions for James, the attorney, in the process. So now back to Jim and Alex. Do we, trying to think of a way that we can keep the project, we can get the analysis done, get it done timely, and get the answers that we're looking for without having to wait another month to kind of start the process over again, if that makes sense. Is there a way that we can, so we have one motion and that has passed, and we're going to do the visual assessment in accord with the ordinance. Now can we have, the motion is kind of fluid, but I'm wondering if we could just have a motion authorizing the town, James, and the applicant to concur on the study that is being proposed by the applicant. Is that possible?
Mr. Chair, as far as a timeline concerned, I don't think you're going to find anybody who can do it and get it back to this board in time 30 days. It's just too, it's you know, but again, they're not expecting their final DEP until June.
Yeah.
So if we take
Right.
an extra month to get this right and get the results back, so we have time to incorporate that into your review, that makes more sense than to try to force it in 30 days.
Yeah, that makes it go. We got to have to wait for the visual assessment anyway, and that's going to take some
Well,
time.
and just for somebody to, you know, we're going to have to get down to the details and the tax of what we really want the third party to do, and then they're going to have to get into a contract with somebody, then they're going to have to go out in the field and then do the review. That's going to take more than 2 or 3 weeks to get it back here in time for next month.
Okay.
Just trying to be realistic, I think.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I agree. I just want to get it officially into the motion that what the board is requesting.
I don't have that.
Since I voted in the negative, I think I can bring that motion back, and we could address it that way. It's just a thought.
What motion do you want to bring back?
The visual.
Oh.
What?
I think the visual is pretty straightforward. I
Okay.
think it's the environmental assessment that's the
Okay.
more difficult one to.
I'm not sure how to define that.
It's a tricky, and I think it's just, we got to sit in a room and just kind of, what do we really want, and then try to figure out, maybe even with a third party, what do we really want to do
I
here?
think the motion is to define what that looks like.
Yeah.
So in some language.
Well, does that apply to the visual too? What do we want for the visual?
Well, I think the visual is pretty clear within the ordinance of what is required.
I feel it is, yeah.
I gather from the applicant, maybe it wasn't.
It's not clear visually, but we'll figure it out. No, it's the scope I'm trying to understand is what's going on with what we're trying to do with the environmental side.
That's it.
I mean, not only what the scope is that, number one, you are a third party already on a majority of the stuff that they're requesting. I mean, you have your own in-house staff. I think the stuff that I think that they're talking about isn't under your jurisdiction. It's under DEP's jurisdiction. So I'm trying to figure out where, what's remaining, right? I mean, unless you guys aren't happy with your own planner's stormwater assessment of the applicant and some of the other items. Now, he's definitely not a wetland scientist, so on the vernal pool side, that's a different story. But I'm not sure what you're going to get there. Those vernal pools change year to year, right? I mean, so what's going to happen there is there may be more, there may be less. I mean, it's good. The edges are going to change certainly, but you know, and again, I'm not a wetland expert either. So, but I'm just not sure where we're going with this because I don't. I want to know what's under your jurisdiction, number one, and what we're providing here. And I guess we can work through that with the attorney and Jim. I'm happy to do that way. So,
Doesn't the state define the significant vernal pools or identify them, and they keep them in a?
Well, what happens is the applicant's consultant goes out, does a mapping, does a recording. When they submit that permit to the state, that data log becomes into the state's log, into the state's website, basically.
So they wouldn't have it already.
They would not have it already.
Not if your land's never been.
And to his point, the problem is that conditions change from year to year.
Yeah.
The species change from year to year. Naturally, they have cycles where some years they may be more prolific, other years they may be calmer, if you want to use that word, maybe less egg masses. And the weather conditions can have effect on that. There's so many conditions that go into that it's going to be, you know, to his point, it may come back, it hurts them, it may come back that it doesn't hurt them. The idea is that we know the species are there.
Yeah.
Just what are the numbers? That by the DEP definition. So, I mean, the issue is that DEP's already signed off on that permit. That's, they have an approval for that.
I also want to.
Doesn't impact the vernal pools anyway. I mean, it's not like we're filling them.
Well, it's the habitat. That's the issue, right?
Adjacent.
It's the habitat, and I think the neighbor's concern is what's going into that habitat from a runoff standpoint, if I understand correctly.
That certainly is one of the concerns, yes.
In the vernal pool is a different situation than the stream on David Halls. That's not a vernal pool.
That's right.
That's a wetland.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of what they're concerned about is the watershed, what's going into the pond, into Thomas Pond. That's going to change.
But
that's what they're concerned about.
But again, you got to define that. Are we dealing with what? We have two things we look at when we look at runoff, and actually three things. We look at quantity, which is the amount of runoff, which is your 2, your 10, your 25-year storms to make sure you're not creating a flooding condition. And then the second thing is quantitative, where the DEP looks at two different things. They look at total suspended solids and they look at phosphorus. And those are the two components that they look at. When you're in a lake watershed most at risk, the higher standard that they look at is phosphorus. And they have submitted a plan which they show they meet that standard. We've reviewed it. We agree with it. DEP is going to review it. We'll see what they say. I mean, we could have another third party look at it if the board's not comfortable with those, with me and the DEP, basically. But once you go beyond those nutrients or, I don't want to say contaminants, but other items, you're drifting out of standards that any of us are aware of, and you're dealing more with like environmental hazardous runoff.
So Jim, and for Alex too, what happens if we proceed with having the town, James, and the applicant meet to come up with this broader study, which I feel is going to be outside of the planning board's, jurisdiction. But if that is what the selectmen want, then what the planning board would do would pass it to the selectmen for them to authorize the study, because we cannot authorize a study that goes out beyond what our mandate is to ensure that the ordinances are met. Does that sound like a reasonable plan?
I can't speak for the selectmen.
Yeah. But, I mean, we're put in a spot where, and I agree with, I completely agree with James. I completely agree with and understand what the selectmen said at that last meeting. I'm not sure that they understood that it was outside of our ordinance and that we could not authorize it. But I think that if that is what the selectmen want, then, and we concur in that is what we want, but we cannot authorize it, then we get the three together. maybe with the town's attorney as well to review and see who has the authorization to request. How's that sound?
Can I say something?
Sure. I think you can, yes. Pull that mic towards you.
Hey, Bob.
Sounds reasonable to me, Bob.
Hold on. Did you turn
Am
it
I
off?
on?
I think you gotta hit it. Yeah, there you go.
Bob, are you there? Can you hear me, Bob?
Yep.
All right.
Yes.
This is Teresa
Who's
Sadak
talking?
from the Select Board.
Oh, Teresa.
Hey, how are you? Sitting down here. We just suggested back to them that they get a third opinion, is what it is, an outside source that isn't somebody that Mr. Fowler had done, a totally unbiased, whatever source. What?
Third party.
Third party, yes. And we didn't say as far as what needed to be done or anything like that. I guess in my opinion is you just get the person that comes in, that would come in a third party and do what they were hired to do. Like if Mr. Fowler hired them, they go in, they look at the land, and they would look at all the vernal pools, and they look at the water. And I am totally surprised that DEP has not come down and walked that land, to be quite honest. But that's what we had suggested to these guys when they did come. So
not this broad, excuse me, Chief, not this broad study of the whole watershed area?
No, it's a watershed. It's a budding property, not the whole watershed.
But I don't know if Joe said abutting properties. I don't remember if he did or did not. I am.
Who would contract this third-party
That was my question.
person?
Who contracts, who pays for it, who's responsible for it, who?
I don't think our
Sure. So this is-
regulations allow us to make the applicant.
So
They do. So they do. So what would happen is that in the event that the town move forward, and the planning board has the ability to do this is under your jurisdiction, the planning board would have the applicant put money in escrow. That money then pays for the third-party study.
okay, so Joe says he did not say abutting properties, but Mr. Fowler did say at our meeting that he was not happy about having to do another one, but he did say that he would pay for one. Do you remember saying that?
Yeah, I totally
Okay.
did, but it was about what was the scope of work is really what we're trying to get to. That's what I'm trying to find out. What is the
Exactly.
scope
And
of work?
Joe says, I said, did you say abutting properties? He says, I did not say that. He says a neutral third-party review. Which we recommended. It was after I was at the map though and showed the map of where it was abutting and how it was.
Zoom cannot hear her.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I may, the applicant has submitted, this is Jim Seymour. The applicant has submitted a lot of different materials. We obviously have been duplicated on DEP submissions as well. So I'm just trying to get a handle on this. So I think the appropriate thing to do would be to have the third party look at the stormwater, look at the environmental studies that have been presented to the town, because those were part of their packet to the town, and then make any recommendation, erosion control would be in there too, Kevin, and then make a recommendation that if they see any abnormalities or any recommendations for improvements, make those to the town, as long as they're within the confines of what's in our ordinance.
Yeah, and I think we are certainly authorized to do that.
Okay, if I can just add, Joe says, he did not say that, but he says it does make sense to add the effect on the abutting properties.
And that would be, I mean, that's what these studies are looking at. They're looking at the studies of what goes off-site. They're not looking at what stays on-site. They're looking at what happens off-site.
Exactly.
Well, it's actually both.
It's both, but they're not just looking at the site. When we do.
To us, to the abutters, that's the fatal flaw of the environmental work that's been done to date, is that it's been combined solely
We can't hear you.
to the site.
That open the public hearing.
Yeah, we're not to the public yet.
No.
Well, it can be.
We're just trying to work through this issue.
Yeah.
The idea, as Mr. Seymour was mentioning, is the problem that the abutters have with this is not so much what goes on the site, even though they do object to that as well, but it's what's going to happen when that runoff gets to the edge of the property and then deposits itself in streams that are less than 0.2 of a mile from Thomas Pond. So yes, there has to be some look at what's outside of the planned development site and what is the likely impact to be in a 25-year rainfall event.
So,
So anyway, let me go on to suggest something. You're concerned about having the appropriate input into the statement of work. So we've got a partial suggestion or solution going here that we've talked about, but every time I think we have it nailed down, you bring up something that's outside of the realm of it. And that is we take what we have for a statement of work, and that becomes the basis of a beginning discussion, if you want to have it, between the town's attorney, Mr. Bass, anybody that worked on the development of the statement of work, yourself, and Mr. Fowler. He'll be represented there and can say, you know, I would object to that. In the end, it will be the board who makes the decision what gets included in the statement of work and what doesn't. It's a fairly simple approach to what is really not a complex problem. And it's not like we are questioning the work that was done, either in the development of the formulas for phosphorus runoff. But we have questions, as you saw if you read that in there, about what were the assumptions that the engineer made about the numbers that go in the phosphorus runoff. You know, how many impervious surfaces are we talking about? Where's the phosphorus coming from? Is it in the cleaning agents that they'll use to clean these panels? Is it in the firefighting foam that they'll use to put fires out? Is it in the disturbance of the soil? Is it the increase in radon? You know, what actually are the hazards that we're talking about? And that's why we think the select board asked us to come up with a statement of work so that they could size this thing so that you guys could have it as a working document to say, okay, here's a starting point. Here's other things that we ought to check, some of which Water Resources Consultant has already addressed. And so all you're asking for is a review of their work on those items. And then when you get to some new areas, yes, there is some on-site work that needs to be done. And all of the abutters have given authority for people to walk on their properties to measure the content of the water, to sample it if you want to do a baseline on what the phosphorus count is. We've already testified before this board that the phosphorus in Thomas Pond is increasing. We didn't go so far as to say that that was because the landowner, not Fowler and the solar folks, but the landowner cleared so much wood off that land. And if we went out there today and looked at it like we've asked the board to do, and some have done it and some have not, you would look at that and you say that's a clear cut. You wouldn't say that it's harvesting timber or that it's selective cut. You would say that has been clear cut because there's not a stick out there that's bigger than 2 inches in diameter. You know, in a lot of areas.
That's not the definition of a clear cut.
Okay.
Well, let's not get into this.
Yeah.
Let's go back.
I don't mean to go down that road so far, but
Sir,
the
let me
whole
just get
purpose of
back
this
to-
is to get more eyes on this property and then people that know what they're talking about in environmental to do an assessment on the work that's already been done and said, yes,
Wish I was there.
what they've done is good, but they haven't gone far enough. And from an
let's get back
abutter, that's
to-
my concern.
James, Jim, and Alex, I think that still the best way to proceed is to get both the applicant, the attorney for that's representing
Bass.
some of the abutters and the town together to come up with our review, our peer review of what we are actually asking for to be done. And I think the last gentleman made a lot of sense in that we want to see, which is where I was going in the beginning, we want to see somebody else looking at all the calculations and seeing what is in fact going to leave the property as far as the water quality goes. Obviously, once it leaves the property, as long as it is in acceptable condition at that point, it's not the applicant's problem as to what happens after it. So let's proceed along those lines. Can we do that somehow?
Can we do that?
Go back to our initial.
I think we can.
Town.
I think again, my only concern is timing.
Well, I think that that's going to be something that we're just going to. I think you made a good point in that we're not going to. No company is going to have next week available to go do this.
Right.
So we got to move it along as the study along as quickly as we can. I don't think it's something we're going to want to rush into. So I think that if we set a time for next meeting to be able to finalize what we are actually asking for it to be included in this peer review, I think is not unreasonable.
Yeah, so I
Any
think
comments
between
from the
now, so
board?
what you want us to do between now and the next meeting is to have a meeting with the parties you just described, finalize the scope of work that needs to be done, agree on that, and then have a third party commence to start that work, and we can report back to you next meeting how that's going. And then
Correct.
in May, hopefully we have some results that we can share in the review.
Correct.
That work? That work?
I'd also just like to add that as a condition of approval, I'm willing to agree to non-phosphorus cleaners and non-phosphorus fertilizer.
Okay, so
Still the public hearing.
yeah, let me get this one done because we've got sidetracked into the public hearing. We need to put that into a motion, I think, to make it more official. So I will move that the planning board tasks the town meet with both the applicant and the legal attorney representing the abutters to identify the scope of work for a peer review, and if at all possible, that be done in sufficient time for it to be brought to the board at our April meeting. How's that sound?
Sounds good, I'll second it.
Ed seconds. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Kevin goes
Aye.
yes, Steve's yes, Robert's yes, and the board?
Aye.
Get 3 yeses, so the motion passes. So we're good. Okay.
I'm opposed.
And yeah, I
For
got
the
that.
record.
I saw that hand coming up, Greg. But we didn't
Yeah,
come up.
we got that one, Greg.
Thank you. I want to be the black sheep.
Okay. So,
Yeah, it's all right.
at this point, James, let me ask you, as the legal guy in the room, it is a public hearing. I guess we could entertain additional public comments that go beyond the scope of what we've done so far tonight, or we can wait for this result to come through and then just reschedule the public hearing, and in which case we would table the application tonight. What's the legal world say?
The latter, Mr. Chair. I mean, I think that probably is in line with what you want to do.
Would be the table and to come back next week, next month?
I would like to speak, please.
Sure.
Yes, okay.
So I would, if I can, I hear
Yes.
you. In regards to the application itself, just looking at the application, I think it makes sense to table the applicant's application for approval until some time is that the third-party review is done and reviewed. In regards to in terms of the public hearing question, it looks like there are still people who would like to speak on the issue at large, but again, I think it makes sense to table the application itself.
Okay, thanks, James. Okay, I will open the public hearing, but I would request that your comments now be directed at something that is other than what is going to be covered by the visual inspection and documentation, and also by the environmental items that are going to be addressed in a peer review. So if you have additional comments or concerns that you would like the board to hear, now would be the time. So I'll open the public hearing.
Thank you very much. My name is Deborah Cabana, and my husband and I live on Twin Pines Road. And Twin Pines actually runs parallel with Pulpit Rock Road. And our home is the first home on the left as you go down over the hill. And then there are two other full year-round homes that are down beyond that. So there's three of us that live down on Twin Pines Road, which is a private road. And then there's someone that lives at the very top. And the first thing is that we received the notice for the site walk. And that was frustrating for us because last summer I watched all of the trees that were being cut down. Greg, I don't know the exact term, clear cutting or whatever they were doing. But I honestly thought there was going to be a single family home going in there. I could see from my home, and there's a very small strip of land from the road that separates the property that's being proposed to be developed. But I could see all of the large equipment in there and the trees that were being cut down. So when we got the site walk notice, this is where my first frustration came in. It was for 10:15 in the morning. It gave the map and lot number, and it was on Roosevelt Trail. So my husband and I and the other two neighbors who live year-round, we started walking from Twin Pines Road, and we walked across the property for a full half hour. And I hollered out to people. I saw nobody. And we came out onto Roosevelt Trail. Now, I don't know what the address was that you all met for your site walk because it was not printed on the notice of the site walk, nor was there something like if you have more questions or more information, call a certain number. It was kind of frustrating, and we just assumed that you didn't have the site walk because someone maybe was ill or something and it was canceled. But what I do make an assumption is that I don't think that you walked towards Twin Pines Road where all that clearing had occurred. And this is why I wanted to speak, because I'm not in a butter. But where the clear cutting has occurred, there has been a lot of erosion that's come down, and our road does not look like it did before. It has never looked like it looks right now. And it's coming across directly in my driveway, in the middle of my driveway, and we're right on the inlet that's of Thomas Pond. So I am requesting that when you do your site review or when you go on site, will you please look at Twin Pines Road? Mm-hmm. I will give to you that we've had more rain. This is a 25-year storm. I get that. But there's a lot of erosion, and we are trying to fill in potholes. But I do believe it's because of the trees that were clear cut. Excuse me if I'm using the wrong term, Greg. But the trees that were cut down, there has been an impact on my road. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Melissa Messer, 31 Pulpit Rock Road. Quick question. Did the selectmen or did Mr. Seymour approach Mr. Fowler with the idea of Patricia Avenue as an alternative site? Since our last meeting, that was discussed as an option of flipping.
Not me. Not me.
We talked about that being an option of not this site, not the right site, but Patricia Avenue being a possibility of a site. Is that still a possibility of a discussion and just resolving this as not even being an issue?
That's something you'd have to talk to Mr. Fowler about.
Can't do that.
It's Mr.
You're
Fowler.
on mute, sir.
He's stuck. He's stuck in hyperspace.
He was talking.
I just usually do that to everybody else. Thanks. That's not a discussion that the planning board can have as to whether or not the applicant wants to move the project to another location. So the planning board, nobody on the planning board has broached that subject.
So that was a discussion that we brought up with the select board. So who specifically would need to have that discussion? Because the Patricia Avenue is good for nothing. It was offered to the school. Nothing can be built on it. It was the old trash. It would be awesome for a solar field. It's land there. Mr. Fowler said on the conference call that he was open to a discussion. It's not near a body of water, which is why a majority of us are here, because it's affecting the water, which then goes into Sebago Lake as well. And there's all of the documentations of our talks that we talked about before. So how would that need to happen?
The answer to that question is I don't really know. And I don't think, if anyone else on the planning board or
It's not the
knows,
planning
I-
board,
like-
it's not the planning board's jurisdiction to tell an applicant where to go. It's up to
Right.
the applicant. That's free choice by the applicant.
Yeah, so I guess maybe that's something that you can start the discussion with the applicant on as to whether or not he wants to move his project from where it is. But we can't do that.
Okay. So thank you for answering that question. I'll finish with my daughter's statements, which are different and on point to what you asked. Some installations of solar panels involve reflecting lights and mirrors onto areas which can disrupt ecological systems. You might not be aware that Thomas Pond is a sanctuary for loons and for bald eagles and other migratory birds. As you may be able to tell, I love science and I'm intrigued by advancing how we live in responsible ways. I am an 8th generation Mainer to live here in the Lakes area, and I want to continue to live here. I want to stay in Maine and have a family who makes memories on the lakes and the generations that we've had here. If you make this quick decision to allow our lakes to be destroyed, you'll destroy the very resources that this land has given us, and we will no longer have this valuable resource. We'll no longer be a vacation land, we'll be a wasteland. Please take time to research how to do this responsibly. I'll help. I've been together with some amazing science teachers who have traveled with me to the Explorers Club in New York City. If you don't know what that is, you can Google it. It's pretty impressive. This is a 7th grader that went to the Explorers Club in New York City. Like any others have asked, I ask you to take a pause and let us put us into effect the correct way. Thank you for your time and consideration. I am willing to help. As my husband said, this is grossly inadequate. If we're asking this many questions in this meeting, I don't know, who knows, what do you think? I don't know, should we do this, should we do that? We need to pause and do it what's right and what's fair by everyone in our community. This is all of our communities.
Ma'am, that's exactly what we're doing, is what you're asking.
No, I hear
What
you
you're
saying let's
asking is what
do it.
we're
Let's
doing.
get it done by next month. Let's get it done by next month.
Well-
we don't need to be in a hurry. We don't need to be in a hurry. We need to do it the right way, and we need to make
Well, ma'am,
sure that our body. The one thing that
We are going to do it the right way. Ma'am, would you not, we want to reach a resolution on the project, one way or the other. Now, we want to, what we don't want to do, and I don't think you guys want to do, is have this project drag out for 6, 7, 8 months, where you're here every meeting.
I would
asking
rather
what we're
have it
gonna
drag
do.
out 6, 7, 8, 9, 1 year if it's and make sure it's done to protect the land, and make
It
sure
will
it's
be.
done right.
That's exactly how we're going to do it. That's exactly how we'll do it.
It doesn't sound like it though.
Well, believe me, it is the process that's going through. It is, if you look back on planning board decisions, you will find that every single decision that concerns an environmental issue, the planning board has always voted in support of that environmental issue, 100% of the time. As far as I've been not on I took 2 years off from this board. I've got about 18 years on this board. We have never voted for anything against an environmental issue. So I think that you can be fairly certain that that is not going to change. And if the planning board action will always be in favor of the environment, guaranteed.
We
Okay.
hear a lot of I thinks, we may. I think you can count on, I hope you can see When you have children that are standing up in front of you, you have a 15-year-old beekeeper that has 500,000 honeybees that this project will affect and will destroy. She testified in front of the selectmen and asked them the question, do you really want to be responsible for poisoning the water of 1 out of
But we have
6
to wait.
meters? That's
Ma'am,
on
we're
your
going to wait
plate.
for that study to come back before we make those
It's on your
decisions
plate.
or those discussions. Anybody else?
Back again.
Hi.
Hi. Linda Pankowitz, Pulpit Rock Road. I'm not going to address any of the technical issues. I'm going to remind people that doctors used to advertise cigarettes. I'm going to remind people that we don't know a lot of what we're making decisions about right now. This solar thing is brand new. You don't have any answers. I mean, you really don't have any answers. And in order to find the answers, you're going to need time. This is not something you can rush through. If you rush through and you make a bigger mistake, because the whole project is a mistake, but if you rush through and you make a bigger mistake, whoops is not going to cover it when you've poisoned the water. Whoops is not going to cover it when there's some kind of fire up there that destroys property. You need to take the time. And you think you're taking a lot of time, but you want to get it done. And that's not taking time. You know, you either take the time and do it right, or you leave for opportunity to strike and perhaps negatively impact the entire town, half the state perhaps. There's a lot at stake here, and it's not just the visual impact of somebody looking out their back window.
Should be the issues.
And we have to take all of this into consideration. I mean, otherwise we're going to turn into New Jersey.
Okay, I think I'm going to close the public hearing at this point.
One more.
One more? Okay.
Jeff Messer, 31 Pulpit Rock Road. Mr. Seymour said multiple times, you know, we got to stick to the timing. It's all about timing. And I think the focus should be on getting it right, not holding to a time.
Excuse me, sir. So
Yep.
the timing has to do with the weather, and it has to do with when the land defrosts, when studies can be specifically done on the area. It has nothing to do. That's the only thing that.
Yeah, so why can't we wait? What's going to happen?
There's a specific window for the species to hatch.
Yep.
And that's in April, and so that's why it's critical that we get this ironed out so that we can see it when the hatch is going on.
Sure. No, I understand that.
That's my point of the critical path.
Yep. And then also the point that was made earlier, you know, you obviously care about public opinion. When talking about Main Street, you're taking all that on board. And so I've only heard from 2 Raymond residents that are for this proposal, and it's Scott Allen and his wife who own the land. So who else is for this that lives in the town of Raymond? They're not here, they're not speaking. So how can we move forward with something that no one but the landowner wants? It's their land and they have that right, but does this really belong in Raymond? And I think it's back to my earlier point that the ordinance is grossly in error and it needs to be corrected. And I think that's bad on the planning board for not having that forethought and putting together an ordinance that would protect us from happening, you know, a year ago. So.
Okay, thank you.
No, we've got one more.
And we still are talking about property values, that we don't know what's going to happen with property values if this goes on. I'm spacing out on the future builders lots. Kathy and the Youngs are very concerned. They are one of the abutters on Twin Pines. And in speaking to him, we were talking about a lawyer to deal with property values and his interest in pursuing that idea of has the town done enough to protect property values with a project like this. In the comprehensive plan from 2004, there were ordinances that spoke about not having somebody's building project next to you impacting your property values. And they were not able to be here tonight and said that I was free to speak about that topic. They're very concerned about that. And it looks like a lawyer may be the process that they need to go through to see if
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to make a motion that we table the Allen Solar project until further time where the board receives receives further study. So we're tabling the Allen Solar project, awaiting further study. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Robert goes aye. Greg?
Yeah.
Oh, you vote yes?
Favor.
All right.
I got heckled by the crowd, so I had to change my vote. Oh, thank
All
you.
right.
Nice.
Almost done, guys.
Okay.
We need to go back now to the zoning amendments. We'll start at the top. These shouldn't, I don't think they're going to take very much time to get through. But for the video, Alex, will you introduce 24.01 for us?
Yeah, so 2401 is the adoption of a building construction ordinance, which doesn't change anything specific in town. It is essentially just collecting all of our adopted.
Excuse me. Sorry, but we still have business, so can you folks just please take conversation outside, please?
It essentially collects all the town's adopted codes and puts it into one document so that it's easily accessible to the general public. So that's really all that is.
Any questions for Alex from the board? Is there anyone, over the public hearing, is there anyone that wants to talk about the building construction ordinance warrant change? I'll close the public hearing. I'll close the public hearing and...
Excuse me.
Oh, is somebody there?
I didn't hear.
sorry.
What?
Building construction ordinance.
Oh, fine.
Sit down, Peter.
You don't have a whole lot of choice on this.
We get a motion, Greg, can we get a motion?
Move that we adopt the floodplain management. Is that what I'm on?
No, 2401?
Building construction.
Building construction. Long night, can't get there.
I move that the board adopt the building construction ordinance, chapter 400, and submit it to the select board, ought to pass.
Is there a second?
Yep.
Ed seconds. I'm assuming we don't need any discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Robert goes aye. So, motion passes. Alex, 24.2?
Yep, Peter, this is the one you were looking for, 2402. This is an amendment of the land use and the shoreline zoning ordinance to allow for accessory residential apartments, or accessory dwelling units as we're now calling them, within the shoreline zone. It's a pretty substantial change from what we've allowed until this point, or at least in the last 5 to 7 years. Essentially, this allows for apartments within the shoreland zone that are beyond 250 feet from a great pond, 75 feet from a stream, which is the state shoreland zone. And this would still require these units to be limited in size. We've talked about the proposed square footage is 1,250 square feet, which is an increase from the current 700 square feet.
No more than one unit.
Okay.
Correct.
For procedural, I am required to tell you that it has reached the magic hour of 10 o'clock. There is an ordinance that says if anybody objects to us continuing with at this point, and would prefer to that we adjourn and reconvene at a different time, now would be the time to voice that willing desire.
Let's get it done.
All right. Then, is there any other questions for Alex on 24.02?
I have one.
Board. Yep, good.
Alex, is there a level cap as far as 2 or 3 stories with something like this?
The shoreline zone.
So yeah, the shoreland zoning ordinance does have a max structure height of 35 feet. So that would be the max height.
So it's not specific to living quarters. It's a footage to the peak.
Yeah.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Questions for Alex? If Peter is still in the room, I'm not going to open the public
Still here,
hearing.
he's waiting for you.
I'm in favor, obviously, of this ordinance. I think it should go forward. And just for clarification, though, this applies just to the shoreline?
The proposed amendment just applies to shoreland, the changes. The land use ordinance does include one minor change, and that is the size. And that's to increase it from 700 to 1250. So this is everywhere other than shoreland. Increase to 1250 and has to be accessory and subordinate in size to the principal dwelling unit. That's the only.
In the definition.
In the definition.
Of living space.
Actually, no, that is.
That's just shoreline?
That is in shoreland. Is that? No, it is in the land use. Yep, you're right. So there is a definition for living space that we're putting in as well. To kind of, clarify the difference between living space and storage space.
So I guess my question would be, if this applies both to shoreland and our other ordinances, then what about LD 2003 as far as in designated growth areas where you could put 2 or even 3 possibly of those units?
We
Does
have
that
not
apply?
addressed that at this point.
Okay.
So that would be something I think possibly next year or after the comprehensive plan committee has completed their process, that could be addressed.
Okay. All I would say is just a date, July 1st.
Exactly.
Any discussion?
We got another comment.
Another comment.
Oh, another comment. I'm sorry.
As I said earlier, I'm a lawyer, and I'm also a land use lawyer. I am not your lawyer, however. I do have some suggestions on this. LD 203 guidance. I don't know if anybody has that. Alex, do you have
Yes.
that?
Yes.
I noticed in here that in your ordinance, this is what caught my eye because I've been dealing with this issue in several communities, because I represent people all over Greater Portland about this, is in your ordinances, no more than 1 accessory dwelling unit. And I note in the law, the 4364A talks about having multiple dwelling units required. And in a situation where you have an existing dwelling unit, you may have up to 2 additional dwelling units, one that's attached to the house and one that's detached to the house. There's also some other arrangements here, and you'll see in this, if you haven't seen the guidance, I don't know if Alex, you've shared that with others, but you'll see that they've got some charts on how many units you can have depending upon whether you have a vacant lot or a lot, as Peter alluded to, in a designated growth area. in those areas, you can actually have up to 4 units if you have a designated growth area. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't want to see your ordinance passed and be inconsistent with the state law, because as you know, the state law will preempt this. So, and I didn't want to see any challenges to it. If somebody I've had a number of people come in and ask for, can I do more than one dwelling unit, ADU, and under the statute, they clearly can. So I guess where you've limited it to one, I just didn't want to see all this hard work and then somebody challenge.
Shoreland?
This is just the accessory in the shoreland zone.
It is, okay.
Yeah. What we're proposing is just in the shoreland zone.
And I guess my
Not a
question,
regular
Alex,
land
is that, does shoreline allow you to limit it to one?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's one of the, at least that's how I've understood with LD 2003, is we have the authority to limit that in the shoreline zone. And we have a large shoreline zone.
Yeah.
So that's why we are splitting this out to within 250 and beyond 250.
Mm-hmm.
And I will add that our attorney, Phil Saucier, did review this a few weeks ago and signed off on it as being in compliance with LD 2003. So.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that if you'd had a chance to for counsel.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I did notice is I just didn't want to see you pass an ordinance that was going to be
absolutely. He reviews all of them before we take it to public hearing to this point. So he did review it a few weeks ago.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now I will close the public hearing and for board discussion and motion. Anybody?
Alrighty. I move that we adopt the amended ordinance 2402 and send it to the select board ought to pass.
Second.
It's been second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Kevin goes aye.
Unanimous.
I can't see the board.
It's unanimous.
Unanimous.
Okay, and actually I'm a no.
Oh.
So it passes.
All right,
24.04 up next. Alex?
Yep, that is an amendment to the cluster or open space subdivision rules, and that will essentially create an affordable housing density bonus, if you want to call it that. And the language would allow for 1.5 times of an increase in net area calculation for affordable housing as defined, and a few other increases, as well as the density. You could do a higher, taller building and a smaller lot size, I believe. But that's essentially the gist of what's being proposed.
From the board, any questions for Alex?
Yeah, what would an open space subdivision be required to get this? If they only have one affordable housing unit built in there, or 2 out of 10?
No, I believe there's a
caveat in there.
let's see, where do we have it?
There was a percentage in there, I think.
Yeah, I believe, because there's a time period.
Yes.
I thought it was 30 years.
30 years.
Yeah.
But the whole subdivision doesn't have to be affordable.
No, I think it just says all units designated affordable. But it's a good question.
The period of affordability should last at least 30 years after the completion of construction. Well, what's the definition of affordable housing?
I think it's a majority, because there is a definition for majority in here. they can afford a majority of the units that geez, it's getting too late, I can't talk. That the developer designates as affordable.
Density.
I think it's a good question, because in here it just says that the developer must indicate which units are going to be designated as affordable.
So not necessarily all of them.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the intent is that a majority of the units are affordable in order to get the bonus, but it's a good question.
And Alex, what is sort of the standard or method that the town would use to manage that or control that?
Well, it becomes a deed restriction, and that would be in 2C, I believe. Yeah, so essentially there's a restrictive covenants and deed restriction that goes into place with this, that says that these units have to be designated as affordable housing for 30 years. And how that gets enforced, I've never had to do it, so I would have to research that one.
It's an issue in other towns.
And I know this ordinance
Projects in.
was based upon the state model, and I believe Wyndham and Gorham. Is that the other one we took?
Yeah, I believe you're correct, Alex. It's in the statute. So basically, in LD 2003, it is fairly clearly defined as far as what would need to be in the deed, and for the limitation on the amount of time which it would have to remain as affordable. And I'm probably pretty sure that this what you have in here is what came from the statute.
Yeah. Yeah, we used Kate Birch to create this. She kind of helped us put it together.
I've drafted these covenants before, and the municipality is the one that can enforce this.
Yeah.
And also what the deal is that incomes, half of the project has to be affordable, meaning a household with an income of no more than 120% of the median income in the community.
Yeah.
They have some standards for that. And it has to be, what that means is the mortgage payment, not including mortgage insurance, and certain housing expenses will not exceed more than 30% of their income. So it's a 30% trigger. It has to be half of the units. I haven't had any developers yet tackle this because it's a pretty tough standard to get half of the units in there affordable. So you can imagine that not many developers are going to touch this because most of the projects, quite frankly, are just higher in cost. The mortgage payments exceed that, and it's going to be difficult to hit those numbers, but especially if it's going to be enforceable for 30 years. I mean, that sounds like it's out of reach for a lot of folks, but you can certainly pass it. But I don't know how many people are going to take advantage of it.
I think there would have to be some sort of like TIF or some type of incentive. Right?
Absolutely. So this is really to incentivize developers, and according to the theory, that development is all going to go to the designated growth areas. Yeah. So you can see how all of these things are tied together. And I don't think that there was a question as to whether the municipality could enforce that. We know they could. I think the question was who.
Yeah.
Do we need to add something in there that at least 50% of the development?
I don't think it's a bad idea, because that's a good question, and it took us a little bit to come up with the answer. So I say let's make it as clear as possible.
I think it's a small enough change that we can still pass it and have the change made.
I think you
and
make
get
a
this
friendly
one.
amendment that we add in there a qualifier that at least 50% of the development must have affordable housing to qualify.
Yeah.
Right. Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion.
Gotta wait for
For
Ed.
24
wait for Ed.
Wait for Ed, Bob.
Oh, where'd that go?
He stepped out for a moment.
Took a walk.
Not allowed to ask a question, then leave.
I was with Ed. I didn't miss a motion, did I?
No.
Good, thank you. You know, sitting here drinking coffee all night, guys.
If I could just make one quick comment, and that's that really I understand that there isn't going to be a big appetite for a lot of what we're talking about as far as developing affordable housing. Consider the fact that probably what's affordable is two families and that sort of a thing.
Right.
That I guess didn't go anywhere tonight.
Yeah, I think that, you know, what we've talked about in the past is, I've said affordable housing is kind of a little bit of an oxymoron.
Yep.
Because we don't control the property value.
Sure.
We don't control the labor. We don't control the materials. The only thing we can control is density.
Yep. And I think the state of Maine with LD 2003 addressed the density issue.
Okay, he's back.
We're good.
Ed's back.
All right,
It's a long night.
looking for a motion. On 2404.
All right, I'll move that the planning board adopt the proposed amendment to the land use ordinance for the town of Raymond for accessory dwelling units, section, what is it, 2402, and send it on to the select board, ought to pass.
Greg, can I make a suggestion?
Second.
We add the friendly amendment
Second.
for the qualifier of 50% of development must be
My,
affordable.
yes,
Okay.
my apologies.
Okay, is there any more discussion? We'll vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I go yes, and the board is all yes, so
Yep.
passes. Next up, we got three more, guys.
Yep.
2406.
Want to go now?
Yeah, I opposed it.
Hang on
I
one
opposed
sec.
it.
Greg made that motion for 2402. This is 2404.
Yeah, and Mark,
Oh.
Mark opposed, so it's a 6-1.
This
Oh,
is
sorry,
an
Mark.
ADUs.
Yep.
Yeah, 24, and did you catch the vote there for the record?
Yeah, I
there
got
is
the vote.
What, you got Mark's, no?
Yes.
Okay,
06.
Okay, good. The last three are very quick. 2406 was a suggested change to correct an inconsistency pointed out to us by General Code, the company that did our codification and legal analysis of the land use and shoreline zoning ordinances last year. So it's a cleanup.
okay, any questions for Alex? I'll open the public hearing if anyone wants to talk.
Yeah.
I'll close the public hearing and back to the board for discussion and motion.
I move that we approve and send to the Board of Selectmen revision on 2406. It's the
Is there a second?
terms, minor amendments to correct.
I second that.
terms.
Second. Oh,
Been seconded. Is there any other discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Kevin's yes.
Who wants
Steve
to
is a
be the
yes.
descendant? Who, come on, we
Robert's
gotta
a
do have
yes.
descendant.
We were doing good.
All right, 6 is done. We got 2 to go. 2408.
2408 is a complete repeal and replace of the floodplain management ordinance, which is basically not an option.
This is as
Put it
mandated by the
kindly.
state
Yeah,
or the feds, both.
feds. Yeah,
Both. Is this MEMA or FEMA?
both.
All right, is there, since it's not an option, is there a motion? Oh, wait a minute, I do need to open the public hearing. we open the public hearing? Anyone wants to comment on 24.08? And I'll close the public hearing, and now back to the board.
All right, I'll move that we adopt the floodplain management ordinance for the town of Raymond, 2408, and send it to the select board ought to pass.
Second.
It has been seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Robert goes aye.
All right. And the last one, 2409, is the business license ordinance, which is not one that you guys typically have to vote on, but we are going to anyways. The amendment to this removes the requirement for businesses to annually renew their license, basically. So now it'll be a one-time deal.
This is really a town ordinance, but
Yeah.
for those new to the planning board, all ordinance changes come through the planning board, so we are really just kind of passing this through to the selectmen. Is there, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone that wants to comment? I'll close the public hearing and back to the board for a motion.
I move that we approve 2409, the business license ordinance changes, and forward it to the Board of Selectmen.
I'll
Is there a
second.
second? Been seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I am a yes as well. Motion passes unanimously. We've gone through all our ordinances, revisions, gone through our project. We are under item 5, which is none, which is new business. We're on item 6, staff communications and updates, which I'm sure they have none. So we must be at 7 now.
I move we adjourn.
Great idea.
Let's have a discussion on that.
Not allowed. Second.
It's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
We all, yes.